To order the Select Board meeting for August 13th, 2024. This meeting is broadcast by the Needham channel, the town's YouTube channel, and via Zoom. It is being recorded for publication and later viewing. In accordance with the open meeting law, if anyone else in attendance wishes to record the meeting, they are required to notify the chair first, so the chair may inform other attendees. I have public comment. Anyone in the room? Anyone on Zoom, Miles?
No one that I can see, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Okay. First order of business is the reading of a proclamation for International Overdose Awareness Day. Heidi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Town of Needham 2024 International Overdose Awareness Day Proclamation. Whereas International Overdose Awareness Day aims to bring communities together to remember without stigma those who have died from overdose and acknowledge the grief of the family and friends left behind. And whereas observance of this day is an opportunity to raise awareness about the risk of overdose, to promote discussion about prevention, and share information about support services. And whereas addiction is a disease that touches families in every community. The epidemic has claimed the lives of thousands of Massachusetts residents and affected countless other family members. And whereas those affected by overdose are our children, our parents, and our siblings, and deserve our compassion and support. And whereas the town of Needham, Massachusetts does affirm and acknowledge the pain and hardship caused by drug overdose. Now therefore be it resolved that August 29th, 2024 be declared International Overdose Awareness Day in the town of Needham, signed this 13th day of August 2024. So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? I will add that there is a vigil at Memorial Park on August 29th at 6:30. So let's have a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, next up, we have the Needham Branding and Town Seal Committee logo recommendation. Might I have the Branding and Seal Committee come on up, please? You know who you are. Amy, you want to come up too? And do we have Amber online?
Amber's not online yet, Mr. Chair, unless they are using a different name, in which case.
All right, I think we-
ask them to raise their hand.
All right, we sent a link. Yeah, please, come on up. Dave, you want to come up? So, Kate's here too. So since October, there has been a committee formed to look at the town seal and the town logo. And we've been looking at the logo first, not the seal. There's been a lot of confusion. I would say, so people understand the difference between a logo and the seal. If you ever watch the Beanpot hockey, okay, it's not the book flying over three mountains team, but playing again. Oh, that's BC. BC doesn't play. All right, the floating torch over the scroll versus the City of Boston view. That's BU. It is the Eagles, it's the Huskies, or it's the Terriers, the most vicious of the toy dogs. So we use logos and we don't use seals sometimes. So in this case, what Needham needs, we think, is a logo to help identify certain town functions. That's what this committee has been doing. You're here to offer a recommendation to the board. So this is Amy House, she of course did a poll that got 1,500. Just excellent. That was bigger than a local election, right?
Sadly.
Yeah, Cynthia Ganang, thank you very much. Gloria Grice from Needham History Center, Marshall Davis, and David Lindy, you did the artwork. Thank you very much. Great work. All right, so who's going to take us through? Kate, you're on it too, so.
Okay, sure. So we did provide the board with the final two options that the town seal and branding committee came up with. One of them is, we had shown you this one before. It is the cupola without the weather vane. And the committee took up and asked David to create one with the weather vane. And at its meeting at 5 o'clock voted to support that and make that recommendation to this board to be the logo for the town of Needham. Maybe David could talk a little bit about how it would be used in various ways on various things like the big bellies and the trucks and seals and stationery and patches and things like that.
Right. In working this, Kevin's exactly right. Right now, Needham, the seal is basically the logo, and it's on everything from the size of a dime to, I won't say a billboard, but I've seen it probably 4 feet across on the signage of Town Hall here. And it's also been done 1,000 different ways by 1,000 different artists type of thing. So our whole idea was, can we get something that's simple and unique? And from a graphic design standpoint, we can use it small, use it large, keep it very consistent, find the right colors on it, and just do it sort of embodies Needham, and it's different than our other communities around here type of thing. So again, with the help of the committee, and fantastic sort of getting everybody together on their, basically coming up with a creative brief. Here's things we needed to do. And then I could lend, from a designer standpoint, here's what it needs to do too. It needs to work in positive and negative. What happens if it's on a color background? A lot of the laundry list that Amy had provided was, it's going to be on trucks, it's going to be on, the street signs, thousands of different uses type of thing. And then we also were sort of pulling out, when do we use it? Because there's some parts that will still, the seal will still be the primary identifier, and then everything else is going to be this logo type of thing. And it's also going to go across, into the police and emergency services and things like that, and in public work. So it's really got to do a lot of work for us type of thing. So what we came up with, I think embodies our town, sort of using the cupola. That's sort of our, the gem of town. And then we wanted to bring in, how can we bring in some more of the environment type of thing? And we have a lot of bridges just because we have a lot of that in our environment with water and things like that. So the mark itself includes the town hall cupola, and we wanted to just trim it off right with the, up right to the weather vane. And then, a bridge is sort of nod to our environment with a lot of bridges coming in and out of Newton.
Correct.
Well, I think one of the things that David, we had said at the beginning that we were tired of cupolas. And you did a lot of research, and we asked many people what makes community for them, and they come to the common and they look at Town Hall. And I don't think you can argue with that. So.
Right. And this is the town of Needham. We're in Town Hall, so we have the cupola. So it is our thing. Okay. And another use would be like the yellow trash bags, paper throw trash bags. It has a town seal on it. They're not official town trash when it gets tossed. So it's just this idea that there's another way to say Needham without always saying it's a town seal. So does the board have any thoughts?
I'm all in on this. The town seal does not belong in uses other than official purposes. So I am a huge fan, and I like the new proposed design.
Can I just ask, maybe that the committee or somebody could speak to how the turnover will go? I've heard a lot of people wondering about, this is going to cost a lot to turn it over. And so what's the plan for changing this logo or changing to this logo on all of those things?
So we've created an inventory, and we'll put together a user group to determine what the first things should be. We did get an earmark in the FY25 state budget for $50,000 to start moving that way. We're exploring whether, for instance, on the street name signs, a sticker would work. It may not work, but we're, exploring that. And this really will be phased in. We still have a little bit of ARPA money that we can use as well. The town seal won't be as an expensive cost because it's mostly creating the seal itself that gets stamped. And maybe some of the seals in this building might need to get replicated. Most of the seals would be on paper, which is easier. So the logo, we will start with maybe the low-hanging fruit. For me, it's the Big Bellies on the Common, and move out from there. We're looking at, all the new trucks we bring in would have the logo. But we haven't really worked with the departments yet on, some of them have their own logos, public safety has logos, public health has logos, park and rec has logos. So we need to marry those together with this. So once we have a starting place, we'll start pushing it out. But we were very grateful to get the funding for the.
Yeah, so I imagine that for some time, there'll be all of them.
Yes.
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
And then as we move forward, it'll
sure.
get narrower and narrower.
Yes.
Great.
Right. Any other thoughts? Yes.
Just ask clarification. I think it looks great. We have 3 different designs. Will all be used in different situations?
A lot of it'll be, what I'm also working on is a sort of a town brand standards book. So it'll sort of say, this is the official logo, here it is in positive and negative. One thing we have going is when it's on white, the white circle naturally goes away. But then if you put it on any color background, having that white, it won't interfere with the actual logo itself. And then there's a few other sort of like specialized instances, like where we might reverse it out, or if we have a one color instance type of thing. So those are the things I'm currently working to, how's that going to look type of thing. But, the basic logo is going to be the gold and the navy, on anything we can get. And again, that comes with, the town says, hey, it's too much to do it in 2 color. We have to do it this way. But, we didn't get into, there's other towns, I've seen a bunch on Wellesley where it's like 4 color, multicolor, everything. So this, again, we wanted to keep something simple and, it looks nice and sharp on social media type of thing. So that's, sort of, do we cover all our bases on that? So,
No, I think it looks great.
thanks.
Great. Anything else to add? Anyone? All right.
Did you want to say about that we're recommending the one that has the weather vane?
Yes.
Yes, all right, so you'll notice in some of the sample stuff you have, there was 2 versions, one without the weather vane. And we're recommending, the committee is recommending the weather vane version. All right, I would welcome a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board vote to approve the town brand logo as recommended by the Needham Branding and Town Seal Committee.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I would remind the board that we'll be back with town seal conversations.
Yes.
Which our hope is to bring to May town meeting next
Right,
year.
that'll be a town meeting.
Thanks for all of your work.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's great, thanks. All right, it's 6:17, so it must be 6 o'clock. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We have a public hearing, Eversource grant of location, 52 Plymouth Road. Do we have Joanne Calendar on?
I'm here.
Joanne, good to see you.
evening.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, tell us what we have.
So the first one is a grant location request for 52 Plymouth Road. It's approximately 18 feet of conduit in Plymouth Road to provide new service to 52.
Okay, thank you. Kate, is everything in order?
Yes.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so does anyone in the room have a comment? Does anyone on Zoom have a comment? Okay. Is anyone on the board, you want thoughts, discussion? Okay. I'd welcome a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board approve and sign a petition from Eversource Energy to install approximately 18 feet of conduit in Plymouth Road.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous.
Thank you. The next one is 83 Elder Road. We're seeking a grant of location to install approximately 7 feet of conduit into Elder Road, and of course, that's to provide new service to the new home at 83 Elder.
Okay. Kate, is everything in order?
Everything is in order.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on the board have thoughts, comments? Okay, this is a public hearing. Does anyone in the room or anyone on Zoom?
We have one hand, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Nancy Ostroff.
Is she on? Is she connected?
I am on.
All right.
I just have a question because I live on Elder Road.
Nancy, hi. Could you just give us your name and address, please?
Sure, my name is Nancy Ostroff and my address is 89 Elder Road.
Okay, thank you.
All right. My question, because I've been watching construction go on for too long in this area, but I think they've already done this procedure and I'm curious how they could do it without coming to the board first.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Mr. Chair, Tom Ryder, the town engineer, is on Zoom.
Oh,
Would you
okay.
like me to bring him over?
That'd be great.
I would note, Mr. Chair, that the grant of location is for the work that trenches under the town's right-of-way,
Yeah.
and that work has not happened yet. But a lot of construction work certainly has happened.
Okay.
Does
Is
no-
Tom around?
Tom?
Is he in? Hey, Tom, thanks for joining in. Did you hear the question?
Yes, so we do have some photos of the area. There was work done in that area, but not for the conduit.
Okay,
That is as of late July, so.
okay. Thank you. I will also add that I went to the site today, and in that corner, there is, because on the picture, there's a picture for gas and water in the patch on the sidewalk. But it looked like a tight fit. That's why I was curious, and that may be the work Nancy has seen. There is a handhole in place, and we know that. And so that hasn't been connected. I will only add that the homeowner, whoever it will be, will not be able to install sprinklers in that corner of the yard because there's so much under the lawn there. So it hasn't been, but it hasn't been connected. The conduit is there on the private property, but hasn't been put through.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Nancy, thanks so much. All right, any other comments? Okay. Let's have I would welcome a motion, of course.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board approve and sign a petition from Eversource Energy to install approximately 7 feet of conduit in Elder Road.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All right, let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the final grant of location request is for 131 Oxbow Road. And we're seeking a grant to install approximately 38 feet of conduit into Oxbow. And that is to provide the new home at 131 with underground service.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any thoughts, questions?
Well, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
In the comments, it does appear that there's some confusion. It says this one is good, no riser or pole, no trenching. However, the pole, number 5, to be connected onto the petition plan is leaning quite a bit. Also, the temporary service is connected to pole number 4. So I guess we just need to know if.
Which is why we
the pole
invited Tom
needs-
to,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe Tom could explain his
All right.
concern.
Is he on?
I'm not sure he heard you.
Tom's on.
Mr. Chair, Tom's just muted.
Okay, Tom, if you could
Thank you.
unmute. Did you
Thank
hear the
you.
question?
Yes, I did. Thank you. So the inspector observed that the pole was leaning in the location of the temporary electrical, but, from the design, it appears that it's coming from the pole as noted, which is leaning slightly. So I think the intentions are that they're probably gonna look at this and see if they need to rehab the pole. That's
Okay.
something we probably should, in the future, just reach out directly rather than leaving out the comment section, but reach out to Verizon and Eversource directly. Joanne, do you see what we're referring to?
Yes.
You're speaking to me?
Yes.
Yes. I understand that it's the pole's leaning.
Whose responsibility is the pole? The town's or Eversource?
Verizon, actually.
Verizon, actually.
Yeah.
So in each community, either Verizon or Eversource sets the pole, so Verizon sets this pole. So maybe the town engineer, Tom, will you be reaching out to Verizon about this pole?
Yes, I'll be reaching out to Verizon about it as well, but that's something that Eversource, before they install it, they'll probably be talking with Verizon because they communicate regarding these connections and determine whether it needs to be supported. So,
Okay. Okay.
But my understanding
Yeah,
is
go
that,
ahead.
I'm sorry, this only pertains to the conduit. This request only pertains to the conduit, not to the pole.
correct.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And Tom, I have a question. The lot lines drawn, is the public right-of-way that narrow by the pool, by the pole?
Hold on.
Okay. I don't know how that was drawn or why, I just trying to interpret it as an amateur.
Well, the right-of-way should be 40 feet. You're talking about the GIS plan?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, the GIS plan, keep in mind, it's probably, that is not accurate.
Okay,
GIS is not accurate. So there is a survey plan attached to, that's more accurate.
okay. All right, thank you.
So that pole is more in line with the lot line, not how the GIS is showing it.
I appreciate that. All right, any other questions? All right, this is a public hearing. Is anyone in the room or anyone on Zoom want to make a comment? All right, no one? All right. Refresh my memory, do we need a motion on this?
We do.
All right, let's have it.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board approve and sign a petition from Eversource Energy to install approximately 38 feet of conduit in Oxbow Road.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, let's have, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joanne, thank you so much.
Have a good
All right,
evening.
see you soon. All right.
Mr. Chair, I move the appointments and consent.
Thank you very much. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. All right. Right, next hearing is a shade tree hearing. A public hearing about a removal of a tree at 239 Manning Avenue. We have Ed Olson, the tree warden. Come on up. Thank you for joining us.
Do you want to invite the
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
homeowners here?
Yeah, you guys want to come up?
Yeah, we're joined by the homeowners as well as the builder, Kurt Petrini. This is Michael and Dina, and I can't pronunciate your last name, so forgive me for that. Okay, thank you. Good evening, members of the board. As the chairman mentioned, I'm here tonight for the matter of a public shade tree hearing. If I could entertain a moment or so just to talk about why we have public shade tree hearings, Mr. Chairman? Great. So public shade tree hearings are dictated by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 87, Section 7. What is a public shade tree? A public shade tree is a tree that's within the public layout. We call it the berm here in Needham, but it's really a public tree, a tree that's within the public right-of-way. It may or may not be in the berm, depending upon what street it is, but this particular case is what we call a berm tree. So a public shade tree is a process that we follow, a legal process that has to be advertised in a paper 2 weeks concurrent. The tree has to be posted, all the butters have to be notified, and we follow that legal process to bring us to tonight's hearing. Why a public shade tree hearing? A public shade tree hearing is necessary when the tree warden objects to the removal of a public shade tree on the basis of its being a live shade tree. If this was a diseased, dying tree, it would be something administratively we could figure out. But being that this is a live shade tree, we bring it before the board for further consideration, and a recommendation is made by the tree warden. In my 14 years, typically we have about one a year. We've been very fortunate, and I think proactive with upper management and building partners to recognize the value of public shade trees and work with our developers locally. And I think a lot of that was a testimony to Dave Roach and others that kind of did that legwork, that kind of said, hey, this is our realm and let's protect these. And we did well at that. But I think with the change of management, I think, and we've talked about this, and Joe and I have met, the new building commissioner, and now we are going to be a little bit more mindful of the new process, and we're going to talk with engineering about the street opening process and the whole process in general to try to be ahead of these as opposed to on the back end. So that is the process of public shade tree. Kind of a little bit of a history. Again, I make a recommendation to the board. Historically, I think almost always the board kind of follows my recommendation. Not saying that you have to, but I try to give very careful consideration to these matters. I give this a lot of thought, consideration. I'm also the president of the Massachusetts Tree Wardens and Foresters Association, so this is kind of in my life's blood. And it's kind of the dirty part of the job, really. You know, I like to come before the board for more heroic acts, Tree City USA and Arbor Day plantings, but unfortunately this is another necessary part of the job. So tonight we're here at 239 Manning. We're joined by the homeowners. And we have a story to tell, essentially. And I think it's going to be a story with a good ending. These are tough, because this is a beautiful London plane tree that we have, as many have probably seen and driven by. But trees and construction are not always in the best mix. So unfortunately, this tree is right in the way of a proposed driveway or a design driveway. So when I met with Kurt and Michael and Dina, we talked about what the town would like to see out of this and past precedents of what we've done in the past, which is typically a conversation where we try to make a win-win-win, a win for the town, a win for the homeowner, and a win for the environment, because this is a difficult decision we make tonight. So we had some conversations, and the story kind of brought them from there with, you know, thoughts of a donation of a tree to the Sunita Williams School, as a memento to the bench to Michael's mother, if I'm not mistaken, who worked at the Hillside School as a nurse.
As an aide.
As an aide, I'm sorry, yeah, sorry. Thank you.
She's a key fixture in my family's life, so.
That's great. So we talked about all this, and I made a recommendation to the board in the agenda packet, which was to consider approving this at the homeowner's expense, based upon our agreement to a tree donation would be made at the Sunita Williams School. I have discussed that with the principal, and she is tickled pink, and she wants to do an Arbor Day event over this, as well as a replacement tree or trees, because Michael and I did talk about trees in the front lawn as well as the berm, and really, that was what we came to the board to respectfully request tonight. With that said, if I could allow the homeowners or the developer to speak, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman?
Should I grab this thing?
Yes, please.
Yeah. My name is Mike Virginio. I'm the homeowner that is building on the lot. Thank you, committee, for hearing us, and thank you, Ed, for being great to work with so far and on this matter. I'm not much of a public speaker, so I'll try to keep it brief. But you know, we are Needham residents growing up, so I grew up in the Needham school system, so I've learned the importance of trees and the environment and its role it plays in the ecosystem. In middle school, you know, we were given trees to plant, which I think is still at 108 Manning, and I now live at, or will be living at 239 Manning, so you know, I understand how that can be a fixture and a property or a town and so on. But, you know, unfortunately, we have to come here to request to be taken down a public tree because we have a narrow frontage, and the way the house layout kind of worked out, it was very difficult to put the driveway in some way that would not be in the way of this tree. But my wife and I are really excited at the proposal that we've come up with to donate a tree to Sunita Williams and go there, I believe, on Arbor Day potentially to plant one. So I'll be returning to the school where my mother taught, and then also look to plant another tree somewhere that makes the most sense around the property. So appreciate your consideration on this matter and open to any other questions or comments.
Anything to add?
I think you said it perfectly.
Anything? Okay. Thank you. All right. Any comments? Yes.
No, I mean, I'm glad that you're able to come back to town and stay here, and you have long roots here. My focus mainly is just on the tree, and because it's in such good condition, it's hard for me to vote to remove it. I looked at the plot plan, and I see, look, the driveway is basically in the path. But I wonder if the driveway could just be angled a little bit towards the neighbor and save the tree.
Yeah, so I believe that was discussed with Ed, and with the way the house, like the frontage of our house actually narrows on the property lines, and so being able to work around or like flipping the layout of the home would basically work around it would be difficult. And then I also had a fear that if we put it too close to a driveway, it would risk, if there's a car coming in and out, it would risk damaging the tree further and then, causing an issue as well.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting changing the layout.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. But just the driveway, because I drove by today, and the foundation is in, and I see that there are entryways on either side of the tree for, I assume, construction vehicles. So right now, it seems to be working fine.
Yeah, I think right now we're up against the side yard setbacks as well. We're just running into the dimensional issues of the actual lot itself and the setbacks, so we couldn't shrink the driveway down, or we couldn't shift it over to, because it will be in the setbacks.
I don't think driveways are subject to setbacks.
Well, but I think.
Go, yeah.
This is my neighborhood as well. I walk by that house all the time, or what was that? And I think one of the central features of this neighborhood is that it's extremely dense with very small properties and very small frontages. And so a lot of the features of the houses in this neighborhood are irregular. My neighbor, for example, has a driveway that has a single car opening and widens on the property. It's single car over the sidewalk next to your tree, and then it widens as it goes up to the garage. And I'm wondering, without moving, so you don't worry about the setbacks, without redoing your property plan and the housing plan, could you not just tailor the amount of pavement that you're putting down?
We've looked into that, and I just think that given the proximity of the front of the house to the driveway or to the actual sidewalk, it might make it a little tight for cars to actually come in and around into the garage.
Okay, well.
Yeah, that'd be the fear of damaging the tree, just trying to work around it. And out of the driveway.
Well, I have to say that I find Ed to be, absolutely correct in all circumstances, but this one I'm having a really hard time with. That tree is precisely in the middle of your frontage, which I get can be inconvenient, but it does not seem insurmountable to me. I'm not in your position, but Needham is just losing shade trees, and that tree is perfectly healthy and young and has an expected lifespan of over 200 years. So it's according to its species description, is quite hardy. So this is a big struggle for me to think about taking that tree down.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add, and I'm trying to be very sympathetic to the concerns, we got to remember trees drink, they don't eat. So when tree roots get destroyed from construction, they die. They don't live through that. So it won't live to 200 years. It'll live another 2 years and it'll die. And I know that from experience. Trees in construction and underground excavation are a kiss of death. This tree will die. It won't get saved. It is beautiful, but it will die through this construction process, no matter if we shim the driveway over a foot or not, All the roots are going to be taken out with that construction work. It will die.
Been done already, you think has affected it?
Absolutely, what's been done is already affecting it because it's already been excavated out and lost a huge part of its root mass. But what's to come will kill the tree. And I point to a tree that we're going to crane out of the public tomorrow at 609 Honeywell. One of the biggest oak trees in town.
I know, right?
And it's dead as a doornail, and I tried to work with the developer to save that tree, and of course, it died because it drinks. It lives by drinking its food. So when the roots go, it doesn't feed itself anymore, and it dies. That tree is a $7,000 cost to the taxpayer tomorrow to crane it out. And it's a risk. Thank
We
goodness
replanted
it hasn't
it.
fallen before we've craned it out, but again, I hear the concerns, but I know that I don't want to get into situations of not approving these and then picking up the pieces of dead trees when we can plant a tree for the future here, if not multiple trees for the future, and we net positive. And it's a net negative right now, but I don't want to be a double net negative by not allowing this and then picking up a dead tree in the future. I just want to give you that thought. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are you replanting the tree in Honeywell?
You can never replant that tree.
No, you can't.
I mean,
Are
that
we
tree
doing
is a
something?
250-year-old oak tree that will never be replaced.
Right.
And it was a victim of, it lost its food source. The roots are gone, and
Right.
it couldn't eat, so
The construction.
it will never be
vehicles killed
replaced. This one can be replaced. It's painful, but it can
But
be.
my question is, are you going to plant this, although this is not the agenda, are you replacing this? Are you replacing that one?
We'll see. Again, you know that spot, and it's a very tight
Right.
location, even more tight now that they built the new driveway that basically killed that tree. And it was the driveway that killed it. That wasn't the construction. It was the construction of the new driveway.
Mary?
So I take Ed's advice seriously here. We would all like to see all the trees stay. There's no doubt about that. Part of what this is sort of striking in my mind is we've actually had very few discussions of public shade trees and construction. And it seems like we should probably be having quite a few more conversations proactively. So I appreciate that this has come forward on that basis. I support doing this. I think the opportunity at this point, you know, the plan is to build a new house. That's going to go forward. I think to replace the tree on the property and to have the tree be planted at SUNY Williams is a good thing for the town. And I will be forever grateful to Carol Virginia, so.
Thank you. You know, I'll tell you that what I hear all the time, stormwater, trees, large houses, trees, stormwater, and more trees. I hear all the time. So it seems really strange to come here and say, let's take down a perfectly healthy tree, because no one wants to. And people are going slightly ballistic about the whole tree issue in town, how many being cut down and how many contractors are clear cutting. So believe me, people, this is really hard to do. I went by the site today. You had the foundation in, and looking at the plan, the tree is drawn there. You knew it was there. And I kind of feel like you're throwing a fait accompli at us. You've designed something, and then it's like, well, there's a tree in the way, and we've already designed it. We put the foundation in. We've had the construction vehicles go on either side of it. Everything's, you know, the berm, everything's gone. I can see where the vehicles were. So this is a bit of a mess. I kind of wish, you know, when things are in the playing stage, pencils and erasers are cheap, and you could have drawn around this. Like, there is a tree in the way. We need to work around this. I feel like you sort of designed something and then are coming to us saying, guess what you have to do? So it doesn't seem right to me. And I would at hand say, I won't vote for this. But I appreciate Ed's comments that I think you've killed the tree already. So I think we're gonna have, I would say then you take it down, and on the other side, the other side has the oak tree. Further to your other neighbor, down east on Manning, plant another tree, and a big one. I mean, I don't mean like a dogwood tree. We're talking about, that's a poke you in the eye type of tree. But plant a big tree, another London plane tree. And also make the one at Cedar Williams bigger too.
I
Yes.
do want to say, though, that I think, this is as Mary Ann mentioned, I mean, this isn't, I don't think that anyone is acting maliciously here, even though we're all upset. I recognize that this isn't ideal for you guys either. But I do think it's a scenario that we as a town need to talk about. We are starting our tree undertaking. And I do think that we need to, maybe we need to think about, when people are pulling permits for construction and there's a shade tree, maybe we need to deal, to set some limits on that then, prior to the hole being dug and the tree being dead and coming to us once the deed is done. Because, this obviously, nobody wants to come here and be yelled at, and nobody wants to take down a tree that looks healthy. So maybe we can get ahead of the situation in the future and work out some kind of way to address this before the permit is a fair.
Right.
If I may, I think I was actually surprised to hear that the tree is already potentially impacted by the construction. I would support a motion or some sort of investigation into that, because I wasn't aware as a homeowner, I'm just doing what following the processes
understood.
as they exist today.
The process exists this way, and
Yeah.
that's not your fault.
Right.
Maybe that's something that we need to address.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, I'm pretty calm tonight, but I think Kurt would vouch, and others at Petrini Builders and others, that we had all these conversations, and maybe I wasn't as calm as I was tonight, but you're right. It is a shame. We need to do better as a town with builders communicating. And to your point, Heidi, yes, Kate, Karis and I, Shane, Mark, and others have talked to Joe. We're going to work on this to get ahead of it, because you're right. And Mr. Chairman, when you said the fate, whatever the
Fait
word.
accompli.
Thank you. It is, and typically that's what a public shade tree hearing is. It's kind of the last step before either the tree dies or it gets taken down. So point well taken. We're going to work on this, and it does tailor into the larger discussions. And I did say that to Michael and Dina, that this would go like this, because we're here tonight for one tree, but this is a larger issue, and we're well aware of that, and they are as well.
And I'd like to say, no offense, but you're on the hook.
Okay.
You know about this. This isn't a new situation for any developer. I'm not blaming you either, because the process is what it is, but we're coming for you.
Okay.
So I was also going to talk to Kurt for a moment or make a point. Kurt is third-generation builder, fourth-generation builder in Needham.
Yes.
I think you also told me that morning that you and I were talking, which I think happened to be the morning that the foundation was going in. This is your first house, is it? It's one of your very earliest in town since you joined your dad's business?
In town, yes. Yeah, it's with the second,
Okay.
right in Needham.
So we have a chance,
Yes.
working with Kurt tonight, to be sure that he is well-educated on how the board thinks about these trees.
No, and I appreciate the trees. I am all for saving the trees. This is an unfortunate situation, and I feel it too. So I want you guys to know that I appreciate the trees around Needham, and I think, my father would also agree that he is a very strong arborist, and he's imparted that on me. This is an unfortunate situation, and I do appreciate where you guys are coming from.
But we do need to start by working with the developers so they understand what we expect.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I believe this is a public hearing as well.
Thank you, Josh. All right. It's on my notes up here. I jumped to my map first. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is anyone in the room, or anyone on Zoom want to make a comment? Yes. Come on up,
to the table.
and we'll need your name and address.
So, hi.
Oh, okay.
My name, yes, we're married. So, my name is Terry Bergdahl. This is John Bergdahl, and we live at 233 Manning Street, where the large oak tree is that you were commenting about. And so my concern is the tree that is on the berm was hit a few times. I mean, it was never placed very well in the first place. So it was hit by cars coming around Upland, And I had a tree in my berm, also, on my berm also, and it was gunned down so many times that they just removed it and didn't think to replace it. But my concern now is the giant oak tree that is on my property. And, it's on, they're well within their rights to do what they want with their construction as long as they're within their footprint. But in the process, there are many roots that have gone, that are on their lot. And so, I talked to a friend of mine who's an arborist, and he said that cutting, I'm afraid, and the person that came to the door, I guess that's a person that you might know that came from here, he rang, your assistant, so he rang the bell one morning, and he was telling me about this hearing, and he said that tree will fail, especially on that side. And that breaks my heart. I've lived in Needham for 30 years, and always at that house. And the thought that that tree would fail as a result of the construction that is going on at that property is heartbreaking to me. And so a friend that I have that is an arborist mentioned that, and you probably would know more about this than I, it was just over coffee, that you can cut, and I don't know why you would do this, but you trim the roots that are on their side of the property, and then that, sooner rather than later, and that would give the tree a better shot at survival, and then treat it with and I mentioned this to Michael and Dina earlier, and then treat it with a deep root fertilization when when everything is finished. So that's what I really wanted to say. I'm concerned about that tree. I mean, even your, people from your company have been sitting in it during those blazing hot, under it, sitting, on those blazing hot summer days we've had when they've been working there. So, and to use it as a shade source. So it's an important thing.
Hi.
Yes.
Sort of speak towards the mic, or I'll speak louder. And you're John, right?
I'm John Bergdahl, 233 Manning Street, husband and wife. I've been living at the residence for 27 years.
Okay.
I was there when they planted the tree. I even watered it with my garden hose from my yard sometimes.
Oh, the one tree on the
On the
burn.
burn, I'm talking about the burn.
Yeah.
I'm opposed to the tree coming down.
Okay.
I think it serves the interest of one property owner, but the community doesn't benefit from that tree going away. That tree is part of the charm of the street. You know about the water. It's a tremendous resource for collecting water, the soil, the shade. My neighbor who across the street, because of the shade on our tree, benefits from her garden up front, and she's on the Needham tour of gardens every year they come by, and they love the garden. And she said the garden wouldn't survive without the shade from our tree. It's a habitat for animals, small animals. The tree was there first. And also, there was a beautiful, tall tree in the backyard of that property that was taken down right away.
Yeah.
And from my, I'd have to look closely, but I don't think it impacts the foundation. And that was a sad day for our community. All our neighbors collected them. It took like 40 minutes and it was gone.
I know. Yeah.
It was probably over 50 years old. And from what I'm hearing tonight, there's no guarantee that another tree of the same size is going to go in another area.
Right.
That's a washy plan. The tree was there first. As you mentioned, it was in the plans. And I know where the driveway is, and I can see the second driveway. One car could go through clear. The second one cannot, it's blocked by the tree. So they could make a wide driveway like you were suggesting. Everybody I talked to, all our neighbors, I know Michael. Michael's a great guy. He's come by and he introduced himself. And we had a nice talk, and I introduced him to all the neighbors. It's not about that, of course. All the neighbors that come by, they walk, and I sit out front and I talk to the neighbors. They're all adamantly against this tree. They all love this tree. And it would be any tree on the street. It doesn't matter if it's this one or my tree or someone down the road. We have a charm that used to be a tree canopy on Manning Street, and it's not there anymore. There's gaps. because a lot of this development that's been happening, just whack them down.
Thank you very much.
We hear you.
And it also, as you know, trees will add like 15% of the property value. If you're going to look for a community that's inviting and welcoming, and you see trees, we were just off subject a little bit, we were in Colorado, in the middle of nowhere, a beautiful town. Why was it beautiful? Because of the trees. And I talked to a property owner, and she said, not a property owner, a shop owner. We talked about the trees, and she said the town wanted to take down all the trees and put up telephone poles. We fought it, and we put in underground telephone wires. The town has beautiful charm. Everybody wanted to be there. It was beautiful. And that's what Needham has the potential to be. A very inviting, welcoming place. Everybody wants to be in Needham. There's parts of it that are real gems, but we're destroying it when we take down the natural beauty.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can I just ask one question?
Oh, yes, yeah.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
For Ed. Ed, can you also help us understand the consequences for neighboring properties if the tree, if this tree is damaged, it's cordoned off, like it's as though it's not going to be touched. But it doesn't seem like the space around that tree differs, to my eye at least, that much from the space around the shade tree currently. You know, the hole is as far away from the shade tree as it is from this big oak tree. So what happens if in a year or two, this gigantic tree is considerably larger than the shade tree that we're talking about? What happens if that fails and that's on their property?
I can't answer that for you. That would
Like,
have to be a
it's a
legal
pri- it's a-
lawyer that would have to.
But I mean, it's a
but
private property thing.
Of course it would be,
but-
yeah. So I would suggest always to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And if there's recommendations to heal the wounds that have been there, then those have to be conversations that I had between the homeowners and the potential owners and the
Yeah,
builders.
okay. But I'm
but
not
yeah.
talking about the legal consequences. I just mean like, do you agree with, well, you haven't looked at
What
the
was
tree,
said
but,
was,
like,
yes,
the
was
potential
true.
to
Again,
save the tree?
excavators can rip roots, so what you want to do is clean cuts, treat those cuts, feed the tree, try to protect it again, try to combat the harm that's being done in the environment that it's in. So much like we're discussing with this tree in the berm, it will die through the course of this construction. We have seen that, and I hear these concerns, but I live this every day. Like I said, go to 609 Honeywell. It'll be the next 609. So let's get ahead of it. Let's talk about it together. Let's get better at this. But we're here tonight for one tree.
Yeah.
One tree. The berm tree here. Thank you.
Is there anything you can do to fix the tree? Not the neighbor's tree?
The neighbor's tree?
Yes.
Yeah, we'd be happy to work with the neighbors and the homeowners and do kind of whatever we can to help.
To save
set-
their
And
tree.
Ed as well, yeah.
Okay.
I was going to ask that same question, if
Yeah.
that could be done.
Comment.
Yes, comment, come on up. And Miles, is there anyone online?
No hands yet, Mr. Chair.
You got to come up, take your seat. Okay, and your name and address, please.
My name is Nancy Mayo. I live at the Lofts at Charles River Landing at 300 2nd Avenue in Needham on the Charles River, or near, not on. I just have a question, and I apologize if I have missed information. Does the town of Needham have a professional arborist?
You're looking at one of
We have
them.
more than one.
You are the professional arborist?
I am one of 4 professional arborists. I'm ISA certified professional arborist recognized by
see.
the International Society of Arboriculture, yes.
Oh, I'm so pleased to hear that the town has them.
4.
It's unfortunate they're involved in destroying our arbor.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other thoughts? No. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would be willing to make a motion.
I was afraid of that. Okay. What's your motion?
My motion would be that the board vote to approve and sign the public shade tree hearing form for the removal of one London plane tree in the front berm at 239 Manning Street. Now, having said that, I am going to observe, I think in the past, that our letter from Ed has actually documented all of the expectations. And I would probably ask that that letter be updated to also include the board's express wish that the property owners and developer work with the neighbor with respect to the oak tree as well, in addition to the tree on the property and the tree at SUNY Waves.
I'll second it to advance it so we can discuss it. Any discussion?
No additional discussion.
Anything? All right. Let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Oh, shoot. All right, we're without Kathy.
We're without Kathy.
So what do we,
let's
So it doesn't
continue
pass?
to
You
discuss.
could continue.
You could continue.
Listen, I think we need to think about, I agree with you guys. I don't want to take this tree down. But I do think ultimately that Ed is right, and the incident has already occurred. This tree is, kind of walking wounded. And if we vote no, all that gets us is a big bill in a couple of years to take that tree out. So wholeheartedly, I don't want that tree to come down. But the tree's already dead. So I don't see why we should accept the bill for removing it when these guys can pick that up for us.
okay.
Honestly, I mean, wholeheartedly, I wish that you had considered this tree prior to digging your hole, because this could have been avoided. But the tree is dead now, and there's no reason for us to pay for removing it.
Okay.
So I'm going to say I don't know that it could have been avoided, but I think that there is a whole layer of discussion in the town with Ed on the team to figure out where it can be avoided and where it can't, in a way that we haven't had those conversations.
Absolutely.
And I think that in this moment, where we already are, to hold up this property owner is the wrong thing. We need to solve this problem in a way that's fair and equitable to people, and they need to understand upfront what the ground rules are.
I'm not convinced that this is holding up the property. I mean, I wouldn't have voted that way if I thought it was holding you up. I mean, I think it's really just a question of the driveway and the angle. I think that's, I mean, I can see that construction's already ongoing.
Yeah. All right, let's continue this until Kathy Dowd is with.
September 10th.
September 10th. Sorry, so we wait.
Do you need a
You need a
motion?
motion.
All right, can I have a motion to?
Mr. Chair, I move to continue this hearing to September 10th at 6 PM.
Everything's at 6.
Are we clear that nobody wants to reconsider their vote?
Yeah. All right, anyone seconding it? I'll second it. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can we do this?
I think it makes a lot of sense to finish this evening.
Okay.
Can we not come to some consensus here?
I didn't hear what,
We
were there
have a
votes, were there
second.
no votes? I'm
We
sorry.
had how many votes? We had a call for a vote.
Well, we can have a divided vote and a divided vote. I mean,
But
this
that
is what we're
doesn't go
trying to figure out.
anywhere.
What is the point of this, right?
So we're just trying to see if we continue the hearing to September 10th. So we had a second, I seconded it. So then we had a vote. 2-2.
I have a
Sorry, I
question.
missed that.
Yeah.
I missed the vote. I mean, I heard ayes.
Yeah, I didn't,
I don't think I heard any nays.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I do
All
have a
Can I
question.
re-vote? Yes.
What's Mary Ann's question?
I always want to understand the impact of the delay on the project.
We'll continue to go on with construction.
You're going to
so-
frame, right?
Yeah. we'll
Okay.
go for it.
All right?
All right, so We had a second. All those, let's vote, all those to continue the hearing, vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So we have 2 to 2.
Still didn't hear any
No,
votes.
yeah,
Well, I said,
fine. Yes, aye, we can continue the hearing.
Okay.
If that's our only option, then
Right.
I'll continue the hearing.
All right. Yeah. So
For the record,
Yeah.
is that 3-1 or 4-0? I'm sorry.
3 to 1.
You can call it 4-0. I think it's the wrong vote, I'm going to say.
Okay.
But, you know, at this point, it's going forward, and it will be September 10th, so.
For the minute taker, who's remote.
Thank you.
Trying to figure this out.
Ed, thank you very much for your work. Thank you for your time. It is appreciated. Yes, we'll see you September 10th.
And we're all looking forward to the tree bylaw group.
Oh, my
Yes.
goodness, we are.
Okay. Okay, next up, we have the fiscal year 2023 financial audit. We have Markham LLP, independent auditors, and Dave Daverson, deputy town manager and director of finance. We've also invited the finance committee and school committee members to attend. Cecilia, thanks for joining us.
Are any of them online, Miles? Several.
Dave, do you have paper copies of this?
Yeah, I think we could have.
No.
Do you-
Okay.
Kate's saying,
I mean, they're in the audience. I
They're in the
don't know
audience.
that,
but if they had a question,
they can raise their hand.
I read it, no.
Okay, can you watch hands?
I think let them know that if
Yeah.
they, you can say that.
Okay,
I don't think we've had a situation where they haven't been in the audience, frankly, so.
all right. All right, so the finance committee and school committee members are on Zoom. Miles, if they have questions, please alert us. All right, open them on.
You're welcome.
Okay, this is for the fiscal year 2023 audit. Dave Daverson.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just a couple opening remarks. First, as the board may be aware, we like to have the audit completed and presented to you 180 days after the close of the fiscal year. This is the FY 2023 year, and although the temperatures are a little more cooler than they were, this certainly isn't December weather, and we're a little late this year, more than a little late. We're actually, the work on the FY '24 audit has already begun, and we do not anticipate the delays with the FY '24 audit that we had with the FY '23 audit. And as the chair did note, we did extend an invitation for members of the Finance Committee and School Committee to attend or listen remotely to the presentation so they could hear firsthand the auditor's report. Joining me here is Cecilia Semchek, the Assistant Director of Finance, as well as Michelle Valancourt, the Town Accountant. And I believe joining us remotely is our Town Treasurer, who's out at Treasurer Collector School, learning lots of good things, I'm sure, Elise Gloshkov. And from the audit firm of Markham is Scott McIntyre, a face known to the board very well, and Zach Nolan, who is the supervisor for the fiscal 2023 audit. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to them so they can talk about their findings and highlight points that they want to bring up.
Thank you, David, and the chair and members of the board. Thank you for the invite to come in this evening and give you a quick walkthrough of our results of our audit of your June 30, 2023 financial statements. I'm going to give an overview, tell you about the audit results, then Zach will take over and talk about some of the numbers and a couple of recommendations that we have based on the procedures that we performed. As Dave said, I've been to the board a couple of times before, and if it sounds like what I'm going to tell you is a little bit repetitive, please understand I'm following our professional standards. There are certain things that we are required by our professional standards to communicate to you, so it may sound a little bit like the prior year. but that's because I'm once again following the professional standards. Our standards require that we report to, the phrase in the standards is those charged with governance, really how the audit went. And we're very pleased to be able to report to you tonight that our audit of your financial statements went very well. Specifically, what we really mean by that is we did not need to propose any significant audit entries as when we came in and performed our procedures in order for your financial statements, your ledgers and your financial statements to be prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Professional standards also require us to communicate with you significant estimates that are in your financial statements. Pension and OPEB and the related accounts, pension, OPEB being other post-employment benefits or retiree health care. Zach will talk a little bit about those numbers. He'll touch base on them, and if there's a desire to go into more detail, he or I will. But pension and OPEB and the related accounts are also significant estimates in your financial statements. They are based on actuarial standards, just like auditing. The auditing profession has standards to follow. The actuary profession has standards to follow as well. We, of course, are required to perform audit procedures of the significant assumptions. We perform those, and we think those assumptions are sound. They're very consistent with other communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We are also required to, I talked about significant audit adjustments, that the audit went well, and significant estimates. The last thing, it's a relatively new thing that's added to our checklist of things to communicate, is we are required to report to you when we perform some non-audit services. You hire us to audit your financial statements. Professional standards require us to tell you if we do something other than that. And in Needham, like in almost every other place that we audit in the Commonwealth, we assist the town in the preparation of the financial statements. We take your ledgers, which are prepared in accordance with guidelines put out by the Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services. We help with, we use the long-term assets and liabilities that are accounted for in your ledger, and we create what we call the government-wide financial statements. If you've heard me speak before, there's two sets of financial statements in there, the long-term perspective and the short-term perspective. Most people like to go to the general fund, which is short-term perspective. It's really the long-term perspective that really requires us to assist you folks in merging everything together and making sure that it's on the accrual basis of accounting. Again, professional standards require us to disclose if we do something other than auditing, and the preparation of the financial statements is, by definition, by our standards, considered a non-audit service. No different than we've done in the past, no different than we do for just about every community in the Commonwealth. So overall, again, I would end before I turn it over to Zach to talk about some of the numbers. It's a clean audit opinion. We found the books and records to be in good working order. And with that, I'll turn it over to Zach to walk through some of the details.
Zach.
Thanks, everyone. To get started, this was actually one of my first audits about 9 years ago that I ever worked on, so it's kind of fun to come full circle and be presenting now. I did just want to, again, echo what Scott's saying. The audit went incredibly well. I think that's a true testament to Kate and Dave's management, Michelle, your execution, and the finance team's execution. This was actually the first year that I managed the engagement, so it was my first rotation on, so asking a lot more questions that perhaps others hadn't, trying to understand things, and the staff was fantastic in being very helpful just in working through some of my questions that they may have been asked 5 years ago that they're just getting asked again. In addition to one of the required communications, we're going to go into the management letter after I go over some key figures in the financial statements. But I do want to, part of our standards require that we do communicate that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control identified as a result of our audit procedures. It's very good. There hasn't been one in a number of years from as far as my eye could see. That doesn't mean there's not room for improvement in some recommendations that we make, but those recommendations are not considered to be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, just some areas for improvement. As we dive into the numbers themselves, does anybody have any questions? Should I just take a high level? My approach is kind of just, like Scott said, hit the general fund. That's something that people care most about. Talk about some of the other larger figures if you guys are comfortable with that. Yeah. Good. Okay. One of the most important numbers in the financial statements themselves is the fund balance of the general fund. So that's on the fund basis or the short-term financial focus, right? So that's what you have on a day-to-day basis, kind of operating-wise. Now, one of the key measures in that is the unassigned fund balance. of the general fund. And the unassigned fund balance of the general fund changed by $6.3 million to the good. So it increased by $6.3 million. That represents about 18% of your operating expenditures. Now, the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, recommends that you have 2 months operating expenditures. That's kind of best practice, and which equates to about 17%. Being at that 18% is looked at very favorably. Certainly a good thing, and that contributes to one of the reasons why the town has maintained its AAA bond rating since, gosh, I want to say 2000, is that correct, Dave? Since 2000. That change is really attributable to conservative budgeting and really utilizing all of the resources of the town, not overspending in areas where it's not necessary, in budgetary areas, I should say. And that's looking at how the funds were utilized. About $15 million were turned back meaning revenues in more than budgeted on the revenue side. Expenditures less than budgeted, which also helps that, was about $8.3 million. And why you're not seeing that big change for 15 and 8 is because, as you folks know, the town does utilize free cash to fund a number of things, primarily capital. And that was to the tune of about $17 million, free cash, overlay surplus, things like that. So overall, very good budgetary performance in the general fund. That's why you're seeing that positive change in the general fund. So very good.
Excellent.
Outside of that, just on two small long-term things, the net pension liability and net OPEB liability are two things that we look at. The OPEB, I was very pleased to see how the town's managing OPEB when I came on and I took this job. That is, looking at a 49% funding percentage is on a liability this side is very good. And Kate, Dave, did a fantastic job managing that. On the pension side, the pension plan is still expected to be fully funded, the unfunded actuarial liability at least, by 2033. So long as that's kept and maintained too, and again, that's projecting every little actuarial assumption hits perfectly, which it won't, and that's okay. Things will continue to move, and we should see that liability decrease or become what we've seen in some instances, a net pension asset, which you will be at in a number of years.
If I can just make a comment about that. So for the fiscal 2023 budget, this was a year similar to this past year when free cash was certified very late and we had more free cash than anticipated. And so the Finance Committee had recommended that an additional $1 million of free cash be used to shore up the OPEB monies. So we used those free cash monies that we had available to make an additional contribution. And so when we talk about policies for financing, OPEB, I think, should be part of that. If we have extra money, perhaps some should go to OPEB.
It's certainly going to be looked at, and obviously on a year-to-year basis, you're going to have to do what's necessary. But when things are going relatively well and you have that capacity, funding OPEB is going to be looked at favorably, especially from the users, so S&P, Moody's, rating agencies in terms of that.
Okay. Great. Here's a question, just for me as a humble brag, but what are other towns, what percentage are they funding? roughly?
OPEB?
Yeah, what are you seeing?
That is all over the place. And what I mean is the lion's share, I would say, and don't quote me on this, Needham has to be at least in the 80th percentile with funding their OPEB.
It's higher than that.
Pardon?
It's higher than that.
Yeah, I'm an auditor, so I choose to be a little conservative. But yes, it's certainly, the 49% funded is, I was happy, like I said, very pleased to see that. When you inherit an audit and they have a 49% funding percentage with OPEB, that typically means that people know what they're doing there, and that's helpful.
So very pleased is translate to very good.
There are some communities not rated the same as you, but they do not even have an OPEB trust fund at this point.
Okay. Good job. All right, thank you.
Lastly, just to go over a few of the recommendations, if there are no more questions on the financial statements themselves, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are. One is a prior year recommendation, and that's really just to follow through on updates to formal policies and procedures. IT policies and procedures, and Dave responded well in here. There were some system changes and other things that took priority as they needed to. During, I want to say it started at the end of fiscal 23, beginning of, in all the duration of fiscal '24. That did require a considerable amount of resources, and Dave and Michelle and I have talked about getting these policies and procedures shored up, and it appears that there's an effort to do that. Another component was to improve bank account reconciliations. By and large, what that is maintaining the books and records on every investment account that's required to be reported under GASB Statement Number 72. So market value adjustments being reflected in the general ledger are reflected. The town does have a number of the accounts that are reflected on that fair market value basis. And this is where it goes into a little bit of what DOR has kind of asked municipalities to do historically versus what's GAAP financial statements, what GAAP requires, which is to have that market value. There's been some I won't say a tug of war, but there's been a little bit of discussion about what people should be maintaining. And this is simply to get everything up to that market value presentation. The third recommendation is merely an informational recommendation, and that is to prepare for GASB Statement Number 100. The town is already prepared to execute that. It should not be anything that is too significant or require any considerable amount of resources. As Dave mentioned, I do want to just note that this is a touch later than we want to be sitting in front of you. I expect to sit in front of you folks come December. I would really like that. I think that the town is in a position, and we've got on board as to how we're going to execute that. So hopefully I'll be reporting on the fiscal '24 results in December.
Thank you.
Because I'm just not totally clear with the timing, right, looking at these recommendations, I think, are current as of this moment. So the things that you're seeing that are still not done in terms of recommendations with respect to policies are not something that you're expecting in December. You're going to come back to us and report are completed? Or are you thinking some of those will be complete in December?
To the
Trying to figure out where
question,
we are, really.
we won't be 100% there with all the recommendations, understandably, as we're responding to them just in the last few weeks. We are making progress in the areas of policies, but it's probably going to take us another year, particularly in the IT area, as the board's very well aware. One of the things, the benefit of the consolidation of town and school operations is having a single focus on things such as cybersecurity. And there was funding provided by town meeting at the annual town meeting, which will be hiring a consultant to do some testing and recommendations. That is unlikely to be completed in time for the audit report in December. So some of these items will still be ongoing then, but all should be fully addressed by the FY 2025 audit, which would be presented to you in December of '25.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's interesting that we've been tracking some of this, the IT, the treasury, turnover in treasury, and we always, it's a problem. But it's funny to see that the real implications that, we have to address stuff. So thank you.
I would just congratulate Dave and his team because, it's a stellar report.
Everybody does their part.
Well,
So gracious.
It's been a long, complicated year, that's for sure. So we do hope that you're back here in December, but it's been a long year, and I'm sure recovery isn't instantaneous.
And I think I at least feel a little bit spoiled because this is how it always goes. As far as I know, right? So thank you for making it so easy.
All right. I'm very pleased as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we have any questions online?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, let me jump back to my agenda. All right, next, we have a public hearing, application for multiple amendments to an all-alcohol license, Blue Restaurant Needham LLC, doing business as Blue on Highland. Is Thomas Miller around?
Mr. Miller. I am, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Ah, there he is.
How are you all this evening?
Doing well.
We're good.
Very well.
That's what I like to hear. Sorry I can't be with you in person tonight, but unfortunately I was unable to make it down there to join you. So I can get started, or if you guys have things you need to do before I do that, please feel free.
No, please jump in. Let's bring us up to speed. What are you doing? You have it all, you have a multiple amendments. You're doing a proposed change in LLC managers, a change in corporate interest, and alterations.
Yep, might as well clean everything up all at once, and that way, as much as I love coming to see you, we can do it all at once.
Okay.
So the licensee and applicant here, Blue and Highland, has made the multiple amendments, as you said. The first change is related to Scott Drago purchasing Corey Pazer's interest in the license and the business that holds the license.
Okay.
That, is purchasing his ownership interest and the related change of LLC managers to go along with it. Scott has been with the licensee for a long time, since before Adam and Corey originally purchased this licensee in 2022, if my memory is not failing me. And he's been with them, and since Adam and Corey took over, he's been the manager of record. He's going to continue to be the manager of record, and the licensee's, head of day-to-day operations. The board and the town are going to see no change in the way in which the licensee is operated. It's simply Corey wanting to make a change and Scott wanting to step up.
Okay. But Corey is still the manager of record.
No, Scott is the manager of record.
Oh, Scott
is buying in.
Yeah.
He was an employee.
Okay.
He is now the owner, one of the owners. And he has been the manager of record since Corey and Adam took over.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
So,
All
and
right.
yep. And the second part of this application is the alteration of premise. They have applied to expand their premise to the neighboring former nail salon that's adjoining the existing restaurant. It's approximately 650 square feet and will allow Blue and Highland to expand their seating by 40 people and allow them to have a space to hold private events and functions. This space is going to include 10 tables of 4, or mixing them around as needed. But a service station, as well as an additional bathroom for a total seating of 40. The board's approval of this application will allow Blue to revitalize what's been a vacant storefront for a while, bringing vibrancy back to that space. And it will also allow them to meet their demand they've received from customers for not only additional seating, but for a separate and private space for functions and gatherings, for graduations, the upcoming, which is scary that I can say this, but the upcoming holiday season, because time flies too fast. But private functions for everybody who want a little more separated space to give them a little bit of buffer from the main restaurant. And in times when it's not being used that way, additional seating for their busier days and nights. Scott wasn't able to join us tonight. He is enjoying some well-deserved time off. But we both want to thank you for hearing this application tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions? Yes, Mary Ann.
I just have a process question. So the alteration of premises, does it go, or has it already gone to planning?
We have been through the planning and design review board for the interior and exterior. We've been through that whole process.
Okay. Right, great. Because I think I understand that there's certainly the demand at Blue for additional space. I also know that the parking in the area gets to be interesting. So I'm sure that will continue to a greater extent.
Yep, the planning board reviewed that as part of the application process, and we received the appropriate special permits. So
Okay, great.
The planning
Thank
board
you.
and design review have both approved this project.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I just ask, the new space won't have its own entrance? You still enter through the one door? that
The
correct?
main entrance is still the entrance. There is what will be an emergency exit in the rear. But the existing front entrance in the space as it is now will be closed off with a new facade. So there will be no entrance on Highland at that point.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so this is a public hearing. Does anyone in the room or online want to make a comment? Okay.
Could I just?
Yes.
I may have missed it, but I think I looked through again, and I thought I'd looked through yesterday. It would be good in the package of information to know that it had already been through planning and that it had been approved, if there was be a way to include that in future.
Thank you. Miles is noting.
Thank you, Miles.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'll move to approve the application for multiple amendments to the Sector 12 restaurant all alcohol license submitted by Blue Restaurant Needham LLC, DBA Blue on Highland. And if so approved, forward the application to the ABCC for review and final approval.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thomas, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week.
All right, thank you. All right, next, we have a public hearing. Verizon grant of location, Lawton Road. Is Alex Marrero here? Okay, it's a very Zoom evening. All right.
I'm sorry. One question. Should I come forward?
What's this about?
The arbor.
No, we've moved on, so we can't talk about the issue on the agenda anymore. So, you
Not
can't,
an employee of the town.
no, we can't, we live and die by the agenda. In the agenda, we talked about that issue, we've moved on.
Mr. Chair, she's welcome to call the Parks and Forestry Superintendent in the office.
Okay, yes,
But we will be discussing again on September 10th.
yes,
Yeah.
we get to do this again, we'll
The
do it
hearing
on
is continued until our next meeting, or
September 10th.
September 10th. So we'll discuss it again then, and you could comment on it
I'm
then.
interested in discussion. I just want to know if there's an arborist in the employ of the town.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
I can answer that, yes. All right, next, do we have Alex?
Yes.
Yes, good evening, members of the select board.
Hey, Alex.
Pleasure. So I'm here on behalf of, my name is Alexander, last name Marrero, Marrero, resident 17 Cross Street, Marlborough, Massachusetts. I'm an employee of Pike, yes, I'm an employee of Pike, PIKE, Telecom Renewables LLC, authorized contractor for Verizon New England Incorporated. I've been asked to speak on their behalf about the petition in front of you this evening.
Okay.
Verizon, okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. Verizon is petitioning the select board to place one new 40-foot Class 2 wood pole to be numbered 13, to be located on the public way of Lawton Road, approximately 95 feet from the center line of South Street. Verizon is making this petition in order to provide new service to 93 South Street.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anyone on the board have any questions, comments?
Is everything in order?
Yes.
Thank
Looks
you.
like it is.
Here's an example of where a new pole is coming in. Verizon will set the pole, or the power will come in from Eversource.
Okay, thank you. All right. I have a question, though. Alex, what is a JO poll?
JO is joint owned, so the pole is going to be 50% owned by Verizon and 50% owned by Eversource.
Okay. The poll, but not the service, right?
Not the service.
Okay. Okay. Any comments? All right. This is a public hearing. Does anyone in the room or online wish to make a comment? Miles? No hands? Okay. Fine. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the select board approve and sign a petition from Verizon New England to install one JO pole numbered P 13, on the easterly side of Lawton Road, approximately 95 feet northwesterly from the center line of South Street.
Okay.
Second.
Great. Any more discussion? Okay. Let's have a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, it's unanimous. Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Next, we have Karis Lustig, Director of Public Works, to talk about sign notice of traffic regulations, Kearney Road. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few traffic regulations here for you today. The first of which is at Kearney Road at Gold Street. This was brought to the Traffic Safety Committee as part of a citizen's petition and was reviewed by the Town Engineering Division. It was determined that a stop sign met the warrants and would be appropriate, and we have that recommendation here in front of you.
Thank you. Questions?
I don't.
All right. I thought every road terminating into another road required a full stop. So, I mean, I'm happy the stop sign, but aren't we all supposed to stop at an intersection?
So I can give you my explanation of it, and I'm sure the engineers can much more clearly explain the regulations of it. But the road that is less traveled is supposed to yield to the road that is more traveled. When there is a certain volume of traffic, then it may trigger something like a stop sign.
Okay.
So generally speaking, neighborhood roads where they're sort of all, not near a main road and they all have sort of similar, similar volumes, it doesn't necessarily require a traffic, something that's physically there to remind individuals that they're supposed to defer to traffic that's coming. But when there is a conflict where one road may have more people on it than another, you may end up requiring a stop sign. If you had something like a four-way intersection, you would want sort of equal traffic on both sides to either determine if it's a two-way stop sign or a four-way stop sign.
Okay. Thank you.
But yes, it's common courtesy.
Okay, right. We should all drive safely. All right. Any comments, questions?
We encourage everybody to continue to stop where it logically seems it should be required. Yes.
Thank you. All right. I would welcome a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board vote to approve and sign the Notice of Traffic Regulation Permit number SS24-08-13, requiring that Kearney Road be designated as a stopped street at the intersection of Gould Streets.
Okay. Any other comments? And I will note this is not a public hearing.
Correct.
So we come to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Next one.
So the next one comes to you from a slightly different process. As you know, we have been renovating Dedham Avenue all summer long. And we are coming towards the end of that process, which is really exciting. As part of that, sort of two reasons why this is coming in front of you. One, I think, back to your question as to where do you require a stop sign or not. This is obviously an intersection where it's fairly obvious where the main flow of traffic is. But because we are adding a crosswalk adjacent to it, we are adding an additional stop sign to this location.
Okay.
Is that always the rule when there's a crosswalk?
So I think you want to do it so you're controlling the flow of traffic near a crosswalk. So you want to be more mindful of where you have traffic flow versus where you have pedestrian traffic flow versus where you just have car flow.
Okay. Any comments? Questions? Yes.
So again, just thinking about the materials here, Karis, it would be helpful to see like the crosswalk on the materials. It shows both streets, but it doesn't have that dimension. It just would be helpful, I think, to include something like that.
Okay.
And thank you, by the way, I love the full sidewalk under the bridge.
I was going to say, Mr. Chair, we really have to congratulate the team. It's just remarkable how it wasn't there and now it is there.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And I've heard no complaints about it. And there's very few things that we do in town where we hear no complaints, so.
It's very good.
Mr. Chair, I noticed that the permit numbers are the same for all three of these with like today's date. That's okay, that they're all the same?
I believe they get advertised that way.
That is the way it was advertised.
Yeah, so everything that comes on the same night goes in the same.
I was going to say date of the hearing, yeah.
Okay. All right, excellent. Any other questions? Okay, I will only add that the people on George Agate Road would also like a stop sign on Dedham Ave saying, don't go into the neighborhood, because they're sick of people parking there, okay? And for what it's worth, no one should park on George Agate for field events, because it's really hard on that neighborhood. Okay, I would welcome a motion.
Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board vote to approve and sign the notice of traffic regulation permit number SS24-08-13, requiring that George Agate Road be designated as a stop street at the intersection of Dedham Avenue.
Second.
Excellent. Any other discussion? All right, yeah, come to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. All right. And finally,
This is last but not least. This particular traffic regulation change sort of came through the Traffic Safety Committee, but it came through it from our town's engineering division. The DPW is currently working as part of the state's TIP process to look at redesigning Highland Ave from Webster Street down to the town common. And as part of that project, one of the reasons that it's attractive is that it's adjacent to one of the highest crash areas in town, which is the corner of West at Hillside. That tends to give you more points when you're trying to get the state to fund a project. And as part of that process, we had discussed with the engineers at TEC, who's helping us with that process, that this particular intersection might be a candidate for a four-way stop sign. So that was brought in front of the TSC, and they had a conversation, and we evaluated it internally and determined that it would indeed be appropriate to have a four-way stop intersection at this location.
I have a question about this. So this is definitely a dangerous intersection, but I think this has been discussed before, and I remember the explanations for why there isn't a four-way there. And what I heard is that two reasons. You have the hill going up West Street, and there's, at the time, I don't know, there was a concern that visibility would be limited by the cars going up the hill. And then from the other direction, the train tracks, the concern that traffic would, back up across the train tracks and perhaps even into the intersection with Highland and West. Are those still concerns?
So I think it's fair to say that our engineering division historically has been rather conservative when it comes to making any changes. And I would say our current engineering division is still very mindful and aware of potential concerns, but I think a little bit less hesitant to try new things than maybe it has in the past. I think maybe the two things, we did run the numbers on the cars going through that intersection, the volume of traffic, and it was not deemed to be an issue of where it would back up. There isn't significant cross traffic on Hillside where you're going to have an interruption in the flow on West Street. You're simply just going to slow it down when they come to the full stop, move, as opposed to waiting for somebody on Hill Street to cross. That'll still happen when it's necessary, but it won't happen with every time someone hits that intersection. As far as going up West Street, I imagine that was probably more of an issue when more people drove standard cars, because that would be more of an issue stopping and then going into neutral. I don't think it will be as much of a concern. That being said, this is all being done with signage and paint, and if we do find it to be problematic, we always have the ability to come back before the board and change the regulation again. We're hoping that as part of that larger design project, we may do something more substantial at this location. So this, we envision, would not be a permanent solution, but an interim solution.
Would the permanent solution ever include consideration of a circle?
Could include a whole host of things. It could include a light that's linked into West at Highland as well.
I look forward to seeing what happens, since that's an intersection I roll through regularly. But I do know that it's one that I go through, and I always feel like I'm taking a deep breath and hoping that, trying to make eye contact with everybody in every direction, that nobody's moving at the wrong time. So I think people will feel like this is helping a situation that is in fact dangerous.
one of the things that came up when we were investigating why it's such a high crash location was precisely the hill. And so you have such a lack of visibility there, both for the driver who's going into that intersection, but also for the person crossing on hillside where they don't see down. And there's actually significant glare going up the hill. So I think the idea would be that if you have to physically stop, it gives you better visibility than if you're just going through the intersection.
Thank you. I think going up the hill, if you have a standard, we enjoy the challenge. But I think this will bring common sanity to it, and I thank you for doing it. I think it's a good move. Any other comments?
This would have been the kind of hill my mother would have been taking bets about whether I could get the car going without stalling.
I would have been
always
going
in no
around.
pressure situation in my car, yeah.
Okay.
I think, could we monitor the crash rates at this intersection after this is done and make sure, well, it hopefully goes down, but if not, then revisit it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. This is not a public hearing, so, okay. Any other comments? I'd welcome a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board vote to approve and sign the Notice of Traffic Regulation Permit, SS 240813, requiring that West Street be designated as a stop street at the intersection of Hillside Avenue.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
This is awesome. Would you please thank everyone?
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
I noted 7:45, Mr. Chair.
how is this happening? Okay, next.
Back on
this-
track.
We have the the town office's schedule shift. Kate Fitzpatrick, town manager. Tatiana there around? Tatiana. Are we ahead of schedule or something?
No, we're fine, but it's not a public hearing. So, Mr. Chair, at your last meeting on July 30th, when you set your goals, we talked about the concept of, as an employee recruitment incentive and retention incentive, to continue the shift in hours from Friday afternoons to earlier mornings and a little bit later on Tuesday. And the board agreed to consider that. So we're at a little bit of a timing crunch, given that we wanted to get feedback from you on what that proposal, on our proposal, what that might look like. And if the board is willing to move forward, we didn't want to stop it at Labor Day and then start it up again at some point. So part of our recommendation is that the board extend the current shift through September 30th so we can work out the specifics, and also to ask you to support the concept, and we can bring you the final proposal based on any feedback that you have on it at one of your meetings in September. You did ask Tatiana a number of questions at the last meeting, and so we did provide you with the, I sent you previously the schedule of people who had been in the offices on Friday afternoons in 4 Fridays in April and May.
April and May.
And then 63 communities, although we know we found a couple more even since this document here. So 53 of which have
53,
Fridays,
yep.
yes.
Only 10 are still doing the same schedule as, yeah.
Okay.
So happy to answer any questions. Tatiana's happy to answer any questions I have.
I really look forward to hearing what the final proposal is, where you've actually talked to everybody to figure out what will work in the sticky spots that we have. But I think voting to extend through September 30th makes sense while we're trying to sort this out.
Yeah, I would only add also that we are one of the few, I would say, how many towns knock off well before 5 o'clock? 4 o'clock, 4:30, that we keep going till 5, I think that's excellent, so.
Yeah, interestingly, in hours open to the public and hours worked by employees, we're on the higher end.
Right. Okay. And then, but it seems to indicate that a lot of the stuff we're seeing on Fridays is low, it seems like low use. Right, okay.
We actually hear,
priority, yeah.
exactly, we hear, I hear, maybe you would hear it as well, Tatiana, less about the later Tuesday, but people really like the 8 o'clock opening.
That we're open early.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we almost always you find someone walking through the halls first thing in the morning.
PSAP as well.
PSAP as well.
We're early risers. Okay.
And in both schedules, the number of hours open to the public, I believe, are the same, correct?
The summer hours, the current schedule that we're on right now is 41 and a half, and it had been 42 and a half, so.
Okay.
So we've been operating some 41 and a half, some 42 and a half.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Any other questions?
For the moment.
Okay. And I hope this helps with recruitment.
We'll draft you a written proposal for September.
Okay.
So then we need to vote on this, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I'll move that the board vote to support the concept of extending the town office's schedule to a year-round basis and to extend the current shift through September 30th, 2024, while the specifics of the proposal are worked out.
Correct.
Second.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, no, this helps. If you do modify it, we don't have to go back and forth.
But I think that's the idea of extending September 30th, so we have time for your feedback.
Correct. Okay. Excellent. Any other comments? All right, let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you,
Thank you
Tatiana.
very much.
Working for our employees.
Yes.
Every day.
Thank you so much. All right, next.
Next up is Amy.
We have a quorum.
I know.
Amy Howson, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Do you need the clicker? Do you need your clicker?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
No, but why don't you wait for Miles to put the PowerPoint up? I will be right back.
Okay, so this is the National Community Survey.
Correct.
How do we do?
We did very well.
Okay, good.
So the National Community Survey is something that the town does every 2 years. It's basically a report on the livability of Needham. So a place that's not simply habitable, but that is desirable. So not only where people do live, but where they want to live. So this was sent out by the folks, we have a contract with Polco, their National Research Center. And so there's a lot of data in here. I'm just going to go through the highlights and certainly answer any questions that you may have. And the full report is going to be on the town's website as this PowerPoint presentation as well. That'll be on the town's website as of tomorrow morning. So the report provides the opinions of representatives. There were 673 residents.
You want Miles to do it?
Yeah, actually, would you mind? Thank you. 673 residents that responded to the survey. There were 3,000 initially residents that were invited to participate. So it's a random sampling that is a postcard that is sent to Needham residents and followed up by a mailed survey, which they can fill out the hard copy and mail in, or they can actually, they have their own personal link that they can go online and respond to. So after that was open for a period of about 5 weeks, it was then opened up to the general public. But the results that I'm going to share with you this evening are specifically for the invitations that were sent out. Okay. And that is done in a way because if a survey is simply just put out there and asks for people to respond to as opposed to being targeted, it tends to sort of shift a little bit in bias because generally there are people who like to take surveys and people who don't. So even if you receive the postcard in the mail, you may be more apt, understanding that you were personally selected to take this survey. So there was more incentive to wanting to participate than simply just pushing it out through social media or through the town's outlets. So the margin of error was 3.8%. The response rate was 23%, which is really good. That's actually much higher than any other survey that we've done, even the parking survey, interestingly enough.
Yeah. But not as big as the polling for the seal.
Not as big as the polling for the seal.
But some people like to take surveys.
That's true.
It's true. So this is the seventh time that the town has conducted this survey. It's been done every other year since 2008, with the exception of 2020 during the pandemic. We took that year off. So there's a benchmark. Basically, the National Research Center through Polco has a database of other communities that do national community surveys, as well as other types of surveys. So when we compare Needham to these other surveys, that's what the benchmark communities are. There's about 500 in their database. The survey was posted online, as I mentioned, for 2 weeks at the close. So we're going to go through, Miles, if you wouldn't mind going to the next one. So the overall highlights. So we have scored very high marks. 95% of Needham residents rated Needham as an excellent or good place to live, which is up 2% from 2 years ago, which is great news. And then 97% rate the quality of life in Needham as excellent or good, also up 3% from 2022. And then 85% rate the quality of services provided as excellent or good, also up. So we're on a roll here. We're doing very well. The majority of residents perceive the town of Needham as a safe place to live. Inclusivity is both a strength and opportunity for continued growth for the community. And then our economy is strong, but there are some challenges that we need to address. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to highlight a couple of these. The areas that have asterisks indicate improvements over 2022, the last time the survey was done. So Needham is a place to raise children. 97% of respondents rated positively as Needham as a place to raise their kids, which is really fantastic. And then also recommending living in Needham to somebody who asks them, 96%. So that's pretty great.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Okay, so these are community characteristics. So these are areas where Needham exceeded the national benchmark, community characteristics by facet. So the overall feeling of safety. So 98% of respondents said that they have a feeling of safety. So if you look at the rank, we ranked third community out of 373 comparable benchmark communities in that area. And also for crime prevention, 92% rated positive. So that makes us ranked seventh out of 376 comparable communities.
Still lock your doors.
Always lock your doors. Next slide. Thanks. Okay, so areas, again, characteristics by facet. Availability of preventative health services, 75%, very high. The economy, the overall economic health of Needham, 92%. Next slide, please. Again, on community characteristics, ease of walking, 83% of respondents said that it's good or excellent walkability, Needham. And then snow removal, 88%, which interestingly enough, we hardly had any snow for snow removal this past year. So while it's high marks, the reality is that we didn't have a lot of snow to remove. That's not to say that DPW does not do a fantastic job with snow removal, but yes. For natural environment, we scored very high, 94% positive on cleanliness, and that's also an improvement over 2022, which is great. Next slide, please. And then areas where we exceeded the national benchmark, as under education enrichment, it's nice to point out that, that respondents said that K-12 education, public education, 90% rated positive, which has been consistent over the many years that this survey has been done. Next, please. Okay, so this next slide is how well is the town doing? How well is Needham government doing its job? So again, the areas that have asterisks indicate improvement. So being honest, 75% of respondents were positive. Informing residents about issues facing the community is also an improvement in 66%, which is great. These are above the national benchmark. And then the overall quality of services provided by the town of Needham, 85% rated positive. So it's heading in the right direction. Yes,
Were there comments, written comments associated with any of these?
not with these, no.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Again, still talking about how Needham government, how well it's doing its job. Drinking water, that improved over 2022, 88% of respondents think it's good or excellent. And again, mobility, snow removal, ranking high.
Yeah, we need a really good storm to
Yes,
flex
yes.
while we do it. Okay.
Next slide, please. It's significant to point out, public library services rated good or excellent, 97%, which I don't think comes to surprise by anybody. It's our library is fantastic, and that was really nice to see. And crime prevention, 92% feel as though the town is doing a good or excellent job at crime prevention as well. Next slide, please. So how engaged is the Needham community? Well, there's all three of these questions actually were new questions in 2022, so they've only been asked for the last two surveys. But we did see an increase in the Needham community taking care of vulnerable residents. That increased from 2022. And so you can see here that people feel overall very engaged and connected to the Needham community and have a very favorable sense of community pride. Next slide, please. So using public transportation instead of driving, interestingly enough, this was actually 39% in 2022. So now it's up to 55%, which is a pretty big increase. So that was great. And then walked or biked instead of driving. Back in 2022, that was 71%, and this time around it was 75%. So the efforts to continue to encourage people to walk or ride their bike instead of drive is working. So.
Amy, I just want to note
Yes.
that being ranked 17 of 299 for 55% of people using public transportation is a little mind-blowing. That's excellent, but it just really brings home how far we have to go.
Absolutely. Okay. So there are areas where Needham did fall below the national benchmark. So cost of living, which has been, these four areas actually have been pretty consistent over the last few surveys. So the cost of living, the availability of affordable housing, the variety of housing options, and garbage collection, to which we don't actually have garbage collection, so, or curbside.
Right.
But obviously the recycling and transfer station. So those are areas that Needham fell below the national benchmark. Next slide, please. So this next slide here basically says that we're scoring well on the things that people care about. So there's no huge differences, that we're spending our time and our attention and our resources on things that the respondents think were well worth spending all of that. Next slide. And then there are custom questions. So we've asked these the last 2 times. So the question was, in the last year, how often, if at all, did you worry about you, someone in your family, or any other person of your same race, ethnicity, or nationality experiencing unfair treatment because of your race, ethnicity, or color? So if you add up the numbers here, rarely or never, if somebody's answering for them personally, that was 90%. Someone in your family, rarely or never, was 87%. And if you worried about another person, that was 75% for rarely and never. And that is pretty on par where we were 2 years ago.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Okay, sorry.
Sure.
And the last one.
Yes.
This is about race, ethnicity. Do we know the demographics of the people who are taking the survey?
We do actually. I can provide that information to you. We can we can go further into.
Specific to this question.
We can get that information.
And one thing we did with the 2022 survey was to determine the race and gender of people who answered this question. It actually was fairly similar to the overall, but yeah, we can pull that out.
Great. Okay. Okay. I lost my place here. Okay. And so the other custom question, this actually was new this year. I thought it was a good opportunity to get a better understanding as to how people are looking to get information from the town. So we asked them to indicate how much of a source each of the following to be sources of information from town government. And so the town website, being a source, whether it's major or minor, is combined 91%. So it shows that we get a lot of traffic to the town's website. The Needham, Town of Needham's Facebook page, we get about 56%. Twitter is very low. Rave alert system is 60% as a source. All these are combined, major and minor, 60%. Direct text notifications, that's notifying me if you sign up through the town's website saying, I'd like to get alerted through either news flashes or finding out if a new agenda has been posted. So that's what that means. That's 68%. And the direct email notifications, same thing, wanting to know about agendas or any news flashes, that is also 66%. And the town's newsletter as a source is 71%, which I was pleased to see, but I'd like to see that number grow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. People mention the newsletter to me all the time, much more than any of the other sources.
Well, that's nice to hear.
It was nothing about like a newspaper, town newspaper.
Well,
Yeah.
the comment section was
Yeah,
all
there were-
over the town news.
Yes. Yes, but that wasn't an option. This was
Okay.
specific from town sources.
okay.
So, and then the other custom question was, how familiar are you with the town's efforts to make people of all races feel welcome? And as you can see, it was pretty mixed. Somewhat familiar, only 37%, and not at all familiar, 54%. And I can also get that broken down by demographics if you'd like that information as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And next slide. So the key trends, the comparison between 2018 and 2024, just a few just worth noting here. We have decreased in the area of people's perceptions on the cost of living in Needham, and also the availability of quality affordable housing also went down 5%. On the flip side, we did have some increases. Overall customer service by Needham employees, that increased by 7% over the last 6 years. And then overall quality of businesses and service establishments also increased. Where we also had a couple areas that decreased, openness and acceptance of community towards people of diverse backgrounds, that decreased since 2018 by 4%. And stormwater management, I don't think anybody's surprised to see that necessarily come up as an area that needs to be improved. And then the use of public transportation, while there's only been a 1% change in decline, I thought it was worth noting because we're back to our pre-pandemic levels. In 2022, it was 39%, which was showing that people were still not comfortable using public transportation for a variety of reasons, but we're back up to where we were. So that's encouraging. And then the availability of paths and walking trails. We've certainly seen a lot more, outdoor activity since the pandemic level. I think people more aware of the assets that are available throughout town. And certainly we've done, we've done more work at sort of highlighting some of the natural assets that the town has to offer. So I'd like to think that that had something to do with it as well. So that went up 10%. So that's a lot of information to share with you. Happy to answer any questions that you have, but I think, overall, Needham scored very high marks, and there's lots of areas that we should feel really good about, and there's some areas that we need to take a look at and see if there's ways that we can improve. But
Right.
overall, I think that Needham scored very high, and everybody should be pleased.
Mr. Chair, we will post the PowerPoint and the report because the report has a lot more data in it.
Yes.
It's really interesting.
No, there's a lot to chew in there. Thank you. Questions?
I took the survey this year, and I'm just trying to remember the timing. I was thinking about that as I was looking at some of these questions, and I can't remember exactly when I filled it up and the blur that was this year. So people who completed this,
March, April?
It was March and April of 2024, yeah.
okay, so it was earlier this spring.
Yes.
I was surprised, one of the slides that we kind of went quickly by was the one about barriers to living in Needham based on each of the following. And I did wonder if we would see some current events show up there, and they really don't appear to show up. So it's just sort of interesting.
Okay. Interesting about the rave, notice about how we get our information, but that was when we did the undetonated ordinance from the Charles River, right?
That's right.
So that was a rave.
That actually, that was not rave.
That was not. okay.
No, that went out
Cell
through.
phone network.
Yes,
Okay,
that went out through MEMA.
okay.
Yes,
might
because
be
that was
distinction lost.
geocaching,
Yeah.
so they actually targeted all cell phones within a geographic area.
It's really an interesting question, though. We're wrestling with whether, we've reused Rave really for absolute emergencies. We did use it during the pandemic for pushing some things out through text, but we're talking to the board about maybe just using it for some other things as well. But we want to make sure people listen to the messages if you do too many, people don't.
Oh,
But
yeah.
there may be things that we may want to use, even the texting, because people opt in for the texting. So.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about, because we use Rave also at the college, but we have people who listen to it, who choose not to listen to it, who just want it on a text. So I mean, what we see is that there are preferences with how people actually want those messages delivered. So even though it gets delivered to everything, sometimes it's not actually how people really want it or how they receive it.
We tend to get people who don't listen to it who just call 911. So we're trying to make sure that we have people in place to answer the phones when we send something out. That's happened quite a few times.
And I was a little surprised by the DEI issues still. Some of them just seemed like, oh, okay, like it's down 4%. I
Right.
kind of thought.
We
It's
can
long.
look,
Oh,
actually,
it
we
was
could
ne-
do a trend analysis on all of those just to
Yes.
see. We'll do that for you. yeah.
And as everyone says, it's not one and done, it's not fixed. It is constant. I guess it shows it. Excellent.
Thank you for the summary.
Yes, thank you for having me. Great.
That's good.
Thank you, Amy. Good
Appreciate
job.
it. Thanks so much. Okay, next up. Still scrolling.
Amy, could I ask one other question? These are from the people who were invited to participate. If we were to look at the view from the random people who chose to participate, were there any surprises or any interesting data points that came out of that? Very consistent.
There were a lot of comments about the perceived loss of a local newspaper. Would you say that's fair?
Yes.
So that's in a comment area, right? So none of this related to the comments. These were all the questions that people answered.
There's an open response
Section.
to provide their own comments.
And the one notable thing in the open response was the town newspaper question, or were there any other things in the open response?
I'd be happy to provide a summary for you.
Okay.
And sort of put them into buckets so that you have a better understanding. But
Yeah, I'm sure there's like big 3 or big 5 or something, and then it probably falls off rapidly,
yes,
but.
not surprisingly, stormwater.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm only telling you what I remember from it. so.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Amy.
Amy, thanks so much.
It's a good idea.
All right, next we have a call for open special town meeting warrant.
It's already time for town meeting. Just to talk briefly about what's on the warrant, we believe we'll have additional funds from Eversource to appropriate, that they've given us funds to repave roads. I believe we'll have that. Director of Public Works, give me, yes, thank you. We'll be looking for funding from the Community Opioid Settlement Fund, which will have an amount and a recommendation for you on September 10th. The consulting item, this is something that we're looking to, we've put together a draft scope for feasibility for the conversion that's going to happen in 2027. It's really about how do we think about what to do with the existing tenants and the situation there. So we had talked a little bit to the board about also having a development consultant about how we might reuse the whole site, and we are recommending that we have two different proposals, because when I tried to write it in one, I realized that it's really two skill sets in a lot of ways. So we are working with a housing consultant to get an estimate for that. We are awaiting department's feedback on operating budget line item transfers, and we know we have, and we've proposed here, changes to the water and sewer based on the final MWRA assessments. We may have an unpaid bill of a prior year. That's not final. We do. We will be appropriating the cable, the PEG funds at any town meeting. So they come in at sporadic times, and we want to make sure we get them appropriated to get them over to Needham Channel. There's 2 articles here listed for amend the zoning bylaw. There will actually be 4 because each one has a map. So that'll be in your next version. Holdover from May is the high school tennis courts. So that has gone fully through planning and is before the CPC. So great to have everybody in the room. Thank you all. Town hall repairs and upgrades. This is a design for the HVAC systems in our server room that experienced some failure. So we need to work on that. Have a proposal for, we'll have a presentation for you in September. We may be, I don't think we'll have the rescind authorizations, but we just, if there's a last minute from the PPPC. And with respect to the reserves, one of the goals that the board set out was use of free cash and debt. This really also relates to setting stabilization targets because they're intertwined. We've had some initial conversations about what those targets might be, and we're bringing you a proposal and sort of an update that we're working with the Finance Committee on in September. So we will, the next version will not have the athletic facility, capital facility, or debt service stabilization fund, but we will have a proposal to make some changes to the capital improvement fund to make it clearly an equipment fund. So we'll have this article on capital improvement fund will be replaced with an article that would make that change to make it equipment.
As opposed to buildings as well.
Correct. The buildings will stay in the facility fund. The capital improvement fund was our very first fund, and it was like a bit of a catch-all. And recommended funding source for the equipment is sale of equipment, so we'll have that for you. Let me see if there's anything else on the warrant. No. So the board is scheduled to close the warrant on September 10th, and then the actual town meeting is October 20th.
Oh, my God. Wow.
That's our next meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Will there be anything in there?
Has to get in the mail.
That's right. All right. It's open, it's closed. Okay.
So just a reminder, we closed the warrant, which the board can reopen to put more things in. And that doesn't mean you'll have the final zoning language, and it doesn't mean you'll have all the recommendations from the Finance Committee. Right. We have a deadline, which is escaping me, but right before we have to mail it.
Okay.
Can I ask, will we, or have we heard back from the state about the Kendrick light line marking
Oh, yeah.
thing?
Yes. You want to talk about that?
About the work that the state just did?
No, this was for the.
We were going to appropriate the funds from Children's Hospital.
So the work that we had proposed, that we ended up rescinding, the state ended up doing that work.
This was the painting of the.
No,
that's not
the state
That was
didn't
Kendrick
do.
Street.
The 95 symbol?
Yeah, the shield.
So there,
No.
No, not the 95 symbol, the changing of the through, the left turn
Exactly,
versus
yeah.
the
Oh, yes.
through lanes. That part didn't happen.
No,
That hasn't
they've
changed.
changed.
Correct,
They won't.
they have not agreed to that
We've
change.
been working on that, but they haven't agreed.
And the funds are anticipated to be used to evaluate, I'm going to forget, is it the signal at Third?
Third.
So the design, the feasibility is being done as part of the project. design and construction would be on the town, and we can utilize those funds for design, towards design.
So we wanted to change the layout so you didn't have the two left turns.
Correct.
The state doesn't agree with that at this point, but did they already paint them? They were putting the big 95.
My understanding is they have, but I have not gone out to drive it yet, so I
That
will
was
double
their
check.
alternative, so that people were more clear that they have to be not in those lanes.
Okay.
I don't remember noticing that, but
When I talked to Tom, I thought it was within the last 2 weeks, so I haven't been out there since then. But I will
yeah, I was through there
provide
last.
Kate the
It
update.
wasn't there when we
So-
went to the chamber.
So we need Mass Highway approval to make that change? Is
It's
that what we're
there.
saying?
Yes, because it goes onto their ramp.
Okay.
And it's there essentially, it goes onto the ramp.
And the funds at the light at Third, what are we evaluating there?
The addition of an intersection.
Are you thinking at Fourth?
Oh,
I am
if
thinking
we're
Fourth,
adding a light,
yes.
it's at
Yes.
Fourth.
So the Boston Children's is doing a feasibility study as part of their planning board approval. And then we can use those funds towards the design of that project, which will exceed the $50,000.
All right, and then all those lights would have to get coordinated,
Correct, and we can do that
That
through smart
whole-
signals.
including Newton, or does it get complicated if you
Wells
include
Appling,
Newton?
We can certainly reach out to Newton.
But having those lights there would be a great fix.
I have heard that from many individuals.
A lot of white knuckle rides.
So the $35,000 for that Kendrick line painting, is that going to instead be used for the Fourth Ave?
Correct, because the state decided to do it from their own funds.
But they did something slightly different.
So.
They just did the,
There was a miscommunication when we put the warrant together as far as the change that we wanted to make to Kendrick and the actual striping changes that were going to be made. It was intended on our part to get the state to agree to make that change, and they did not agree to make that change. So their compromise was to paint the physical symbol of 128 on the lanes themselves. We initially thought we were gonna have to pay for that and actually buy the stencil that you need to, and it was very expensive for a stencil. And the state ended up coming back to us and saying that they were gonna make the markings change. So I'll confirm that it's been made, but I think that's where the confusion was. We had printed in the our narrative that we were gonna be making this change, but the state did not approve that change.
Okay.
It's very good.
I think we won. Fourth Ave, that's a big one.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I would welcome a motion.
that the board vote to call for and open the warrant for the October 21, 2024 special town meeting.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, and it closes next meeting.
Oh, sorry. Have there been any citizens petitions submitted?
No, we don't have a deadline for special town meetings, so I'm essentially, if it's here and I can print it in time, I would say the Friday before is what we usually tell people before we post. So there hasn't been, I haven't even heard anything.
Okay. Scrolling through, sorry. All right. The Needham Center Project Working Group.
So, Mr. Chair, not having heard any additional feedback on the group of 15, I would recommend that the board approve the charge and composition, and the Director of Public Works will head that up, and the Vice Chair and Miles will start getting the committee populated, because we really want to get that going.
That'd be great.
Early fall.
Okay. That's great. It's a big commitment. How many years do you think this would be?
We've had it for 3. We're hoping if we are really fast in the design process and concept process to think about a pilot next summer, which would be a non-permanent solution where we could kind of use paint, bollards. It's not a free solution, but it's a cheaper solution than a permanent change. And then we would be working on collecting the funds, which could take 1 to 2 years in order to execute the full project or full design.
Okay, thank you. I should have asked you to come to the table because Cable's going to hate me now but thank you for speaking clearly.
Just a tangentially related question. We've been reserving the Chapter 90 funds for this project. I think it's like over $7 million now. While this process is ongoing for the next 2 years, are we still committing these funds or
We are using some of the Chapter 90 this year, actually.
for other projects? Okay.
Yeah, so we've been tapping into Chapter 90 for the last 2 years for some of our more expensive projects. Mark Tree Road would be the largest of those projects, as well as some intersection design work. We anticipate it will exceed 10, I anticipate it will exceed $10 million in order to do this project. So we are working with environmental partners to look at some grant opportunities that are available from state and federal. In fact, we're trying to finalize the scope tomorrow because one of the deadlines is coming up for the Safe Streets grant. And we think that that might help us pay for the pilot. We've also worked with our representatives to see if we can get anything through state process. So I think we see this as a likely combination of a whole host of funding sources between grants, Chapter 90, and then potentially some town resources as well.
I think that's good. I agree with the way you're using the Chapter 90 funds as needed on other projects, because it doesn't feel right to just hold them in a kitty for.
One of the complications with Chapter 90 is that in order to secure the funds, you have to declare all the projects that you're doing. And we have a very, I'll call it nimble process for doing our road work, curb and sidewalk work. And we really can't use the way we do our typical road restoration and road maintenance program and utilize Chapter 90 funding. The two programs are almost incompatible, but we can use that type of program for some of the supplemental funding and for things like complete streets. So we're really reserving projects that have to go out to bid and their own as a standalone project, because otherwise it would really hold back or even potentially increase the cost of our other regular work.
And yet she has no notes.
I know. And one of the charge ideas is for the committee to give you feedback on funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Please don't leave.
We're talking about ARPA next, right?
Oh, good.
Okay, I'd welcome a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board vote to approve the charge and composition of the Needham Center Project Working Group.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, so I have a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay.
Hey, ARPA. So the recommendation in the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funding, is to do some reallocation within the economic development line. We had funding in the grant program, which is now completed. And we are proposing to move some of that to public art and the rest of it to other. And the other category is for the Placer AI that the board will be, I assume, adopting a goal on, or talked about at your goal setting session, is included in the goal list. And then the rest will be in the public art category we have been using for town seal and for town branding. So just to note, we just got approved from the county for the overage and the reallocation that you voted on June 10th or June 11th, which was the Walker reallocating all those items. And so that's been approved, so that's exciting. And we are very close to we have those bid and we will have them encumbered now that the funds have been approved and sent to us. So you see that we're showing an unallocated balance of almost $1 million, but that finally will go down once we encumber the rest of the funds for infrastructure. And we are having an all-hands meeting in early October to look at what we really foresee all of these lines, because we don't want to leave anything on the table. So we're looking at additional, for instance, as an example, for additional public art, we could do more logos and more branding, and there may be more technology improvements that we can do, because by October, we only have 2 more months in order to, or 3 months essentially, to spend the money before the deadline of December.
December
31st, 2024.
Okay. Okay. Questions, comments? Mary Ann, I'm looking at you.
Kate, when do you think we'll see our next update of the sheet with all the summary allocations to see what's sort of left over? Or what we're thinking, will it not be until October?
I think it'll probably be October. I can give you, an update in September once more encumbrances have been made, so you can see
Okay.
that.
All right. And then in the realm of things that you're still thinking about
Maybe is our board portal somewhere in there?
We got funded in the operating budget for the.
We got funded in the operating, okay, great.
Okay. Excellent. Any other questions? I would welcome a motion.
Mr. Chair, that the select board vote to approve the requested reallocation of funding for the town state ARPA allotment.
Second.
Okay, great. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we come to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next up, executive session minute release notice.
Mr. Chair, I have to read this one. I have performed the periodic review of the Select Board's executive session minutes consistent with the Select Board's policy that it recently revised on June 25th. I can announce that I identified 68 sets of executive session minutes that no longer warrant continued non-disclosure and which will now be available to the public. These minutes are itemized in the published agenda packet for this meeting, and I will plan to include a complete list of these minutes in the minutes of the meeting. I thank you for not asking me to read the 68 dates. I will if you ask me to.
Inclusive, all right.
There are, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, 4 of the sets of minutes that are being released are partial. There are 4 that have items that are not completely
Okay,
releasable.
great. And these minutes will be available where?
On the town's website under the Select Board minutes,
Thanks to Miles.
and they're already there.
Thank you, Miles. Okay.
Have the noted executive session minutes in the archive center. They're distinct from the rest of the session minutes.
I should ask you to come to the table and explain that into a mic, but, all right, EM cable hitting me, okay. But they're on the website, okay, thank you. Great, thank you.
Just a few other things, Mr. Chair. We were notified by Congressman Auchincloss's office that our Stormwater Management for Healthy Rivers and Climate Resilience Project, which we had been seeking funding through the U.S. Congress, the House Appropriations Committee marked it up the FY25 Interior, Environment, and Related Agencies bill, and they included $1.105800, so $1.1 million for that project. So that's not the end, but it's a lot further than we could have expected this to go. So that's very exciting. This is a project that Karis and her team, and particularly Gabby, have been working on with engineering and admin.
Right.
So that's very exciting. We're so grateful that's got that far. Also, just real kudos to Park and Rec for being able to keep the pool open until August 25th. Every year, we don't know how many kids we're going to have, staff, I should say, young people willing to stay on at the pool. So we'll see. It's usually like the hottest week of the year when we have to close. So we're just really grateful. They've done an amazing job. And a reminder to the board that you have a short meeting next Tuesday, 5:30.
5:30.
All Zoom, fully remote. So
Okay.
just as a reminder.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that concludes my section. I'll close it.
Okay. Next up, proposed MBTA Needham Line commuter rail service modifications. Okay, so this is the proposed petition to the MBTA to modify hours. We had a hearing about this previously. And thoughts? Are we going to vote on this tonight? Okay. All right, so the idea was that the weekday train, the 5:05, would stop at the junction.
5:05 a.m.
5:05 a.m., right, thank you. And then the last train would be at 12:13 a.m. at the junction. Originally, it was hoped for Hersey, but there is a signal block that has to be passed for the train to be recognized into Needham, and that is past Hersey. The weekend would be the 6:10 inbound train from Needham would depart from the junction, and the last train would be the 10:15 p.m. So, thoughts?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you remind me, when you went that evening
Yeah.
and the train turned around,
Yeah.
you were at Junction?
No, I was lazy. I took it to the center.
You took it to the center?
Yeah. And
And it turned around in the center?
at the center, it takes 5 minutes. They waited 5 minutes, I guess, to do a sweep of the train, and then they went back to Boston. So to be clear, the train never is not supposed to, especially in only in certain instances, does not overnight in Needham. It goes back. So I rode the rails, and on Sunday night, I went in, and there were 9 people on the train. And 2 of them got off at the Heights. I was one of them. 1 got off at the center, 7 got off at the junction. But the conductor was saying that previous night, there was 37 people, and 12 of them went all the way to the Heights. On Monday morning, I took the 5:05 a.m., and I was the only one on the train until at Hersey Station, 2 people got on. And that's the 5. The next train was the 6:05. On Monday PM, what you're talking about, this was interesting. I got on at Hersey Station, I was the only one, and the conductor said, we would actually stop at the junction and just head back into Boston. I didn't realize it, but they're not required to tag Needham Heights. They can stop, those are stopped when the train's empty. They're not required to take anyone back to Boston, and off they go. So in a weird way, this is sort of like Nina McPhee. If you need her, she's there. If you don't, you guys don't get this analogy, do you? Nina McPhee is a child's book, okay? It doesn't help on the metaphor, it doesn't clear anything up. But the point is, this sort of self-regulates, that it self-solves in a weird way. If no one is going to the Heights or to the center, the train won't go. And so it just turns back to Boston as soon as opportunity.
So that's true at the end of the run.
At the end of the run.
It's not true at the beginning of the run.
And in the morning, it seems that they come in, they tee up, wait 15 minutes. So the junction would come, if it came to the junction, it would arrive and then wait 15 minutes and do the 5:05. And so that's where it would go. So there would be a 15-minute wait in the morning. There is no wait, there's a 5-minute wait wherever it stops.
Okay, so we asked a question about whether it could idle on the other side of the bridge.
Correct.
And I think the answer that Kate got back really wasn't the answer to the question we asked. He told us where it's idling now. And we're like, no, we're clear where it's idling now, So he said it would idle, before the bridge. And we're like,
right.
Yeah, that is where it is idling. So that's not what we asked. So we still don't have an answer to whether it could idle in a place that was more convenient. What's clear is that the point of turnaround is clearly tied to junction.
Yes.
The way that they're set up.
Yeah.
Which is not the most convenient thing for the town of Needham, but.
Right. Thoughts?
I'm not comfortable requesting a reduction in train service. I think we established that, the town meeting established a clear process for quiet zones. And I think advancing that as quickly as possible should be our top priority. I think train service is an amenity to the town. And when we add quiet zones, then it'll be an even more greater amenity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this was intended as a
bridge.
As a bridge between now and a quiet zone. We understand from many, many emails and calls and everything, conversations, that Needham finds the train horns to be a burden. And so the select board was just trying to alleviate some of that burden in the short term. But I also think it's clear that it wasn't a popular idea. I didn't find it, I found that most people who contacted us about this potential plan weren't in favor of it. So as far as I'm concerned, that's that.
I think it highlights how much we need to the quiet zone. I think that's sort of the mission. Had the train been able to stop at Hersey, I think that was a more elegant solution.
And that was the solution that we intended.
Yeah, that's
Which wasn't possible on their side.
Now it gets all mucked up. If I were to put my thumb on the scale, I think all things being equal, I'd always sort of want to favor keeping the schedules simple and just simple. And so it's always the same all the time. It's not like at a different time it's a different station. I think when public transportation gets complex, people don't use it. And we want people to use it. So I am sorry to everyone who can't sleep and gets woken up and can't go to bed. They have a valid point, but I think the issue is to all guns blazing forward on the quiet zone. So that's it.
Yeah, I think that needs to happen, so. And we're gonna have to continue to try to see if there are alternatives for the golf course.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chair, given that sentiment, do you want to ask me to discontinue this evaluation? I know that's the same sentiment. Select Board Member Dowd, she told me.
Yeah, Kathy Jasmine had somehow been extremely clear that she didn't think this was gonna work.
I mean, I don't know that you need to wait till September to make that determination.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to wait till September to make that determination. I think the only other question that I would ask would be a question of the MBTA going forward about whether the turnaround spot for positive train control should be at Hersey rather than being at Junction, because frankly, I'm not sure under what scenario it makes sense for it to be at Junction. It doesn't make sense to me in any way, shape, or form. And if there were ever to be a question again about it turning around for some reason.
So this is positive train control like we would be putting in for the.
Well, they're
quiet zone?
saying that it's the positive train control pieces that prohibit it being turned around in some other location. So it has to make it or
So maybe a
to
worthwhile
Junction,
investment.
or that would be off for the line. So I think that would be a question just to ask, because I don't know why that decision was made. It baffles, but other than that, I mean, under the current circumstances, it's problematic.
Okay.
So is it the consensus of the board not to pursue this?
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Good enough?
Is that a vote, or do we need it's consensus?
I think it's consensus. I'll tell
Okay.
we won't be asking the MBTA or sending them a letter to do this, and I'll let them know.
Okay. Okay, next up.
Because I'm running out of ink.
Next up, we have Select Board goal setting, fiscal year 25 through 26. It's a board discussion and a vote. Where they adopt the goals statement for fiscal year 25, 26.
Mr. Chair, I would say the board members sent me individual feedback about what priorities they thought should be at the beginning of the 0 to 18 months, and I think they're very reasonable and consistent with what I've heard from you before. So.
Okay. My only question is, what did we resolve, refresh my memory, what did we resolve about underground electric or burying wires?
I think we were going to look at it as an educational opportunity for us,
Okay,
that we were going to ask to be educated on such a thing.
okay. All right. Thank you. Questions?
Make a motion?
Yes.
I move that the Select Board vote to adopt its goals statement for fiscal year 2025 through 2026.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we come to the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Hold on. I still have to scroll. All right, here we go. Town manager performance evaluation. So board discussion and a suggested motion. Mary Ann, you did, as the immediate past chair, You led the
Again.
evaluation. Again.
Again, for the last time ever, I was going to say, how many of these did I do? I'm not sure. So this document, I think, represents a consensus of everybody's different feedbacks. Where I got one thing that would have been an outlier from everywhere else, I tended not to include that. Where I got things where I had a spread, I created an average-ish, right? So all those things get incorporated here into the different ratings. And then I did take feedback from a bunch of everybody's different pieces, right? With that notion of if something was an outlier relative to everything else, it didn't show up here. Otherwise, I tried to incorporate pieces from all the different actions. I would note that this year, as in every year, there are always unexpected things. So if people just looked at our last item, the select board goals, the goals are lengthy. That was true last year. It is true this year. And on top of those lengthy goals, there are always the unexpected. So the August 6th storm was something that ranked very high in many of the comments from people. There were some notes on the level of FOIA requests and open meeting law complaints. We'll talk about that again later. Number of new hires on staff, particularly one of the biggest ones being the town clerk. When the town clerk did make a decision to step down, having all that roll out and happen in a timely way to refill that role and with a newly elected town clerk was important. And then particularly I'll note the continued turnover on the board and the continued work from our town staff to onboard new select board members is a significant effort. And I think that rethink, Kate, you and your key staff members have learned a lot about how to do that over the time period. And, you know, as we've gone through the different stages of helping people to get on board together, to some extent, Josh is at a disadvantage. I think you and Kathy had the opportunity to do that together. And I think that that's a plus, you know, getting to hear more people's questions is always a good thing, I think, in that onboarding process. But here they go and here you go. So that's all good too. I think we are fortunate. You know, Kate has been in Needham, I haven't counted how many years. 34 years. I was going to say 32, and I'm going, I don't think that's right. 34 years. So as I think I said in the write-up, her life's work has actually been dedicated to the town of Needham. And overall, we are extremely grateful and grateful for the staff that you've put together that support everyone so well. I think that, as I note from the board, that your foresight and your ability to anticipate where the town is heading and where some of the challenges will be is important and helpful, and we're grateful for that. So thank you, Kate. With this write-up comes an option to make a recommendation that the chair, at the chair's discretion, is able to award an up to $2,500 performance bonus to the town manager, and I did include that option in my recommendation to the board.
Yeah, and I agree.
So with that, I will let people comment as they wish.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would just like to say thank you. I know this is like the worst night for you.
Kate's going to continue to sit there with her eyes
I know,
closed,
she
like
looks,
squirming.
if you can't see her on television, she looks pained. But I do think that I've only been in this position for a couple of years, but when I go places and when I tell people that I also work for the town of Needham, everyone says, oh, Kate Fitzpatrick, she's fantastic. And Needham is such a well-run town. And it's absolutely true. Dave, you know, the audit today was a glowing report. And Katie, working with you on Hone, all of the employees here are so professional and have taught me so much. I learned from all of you every day. I just worked with Miles on interviews today. Like, I learn something new every single time I work with you all. And I think that that's all down to Kate. Not that you're not all responsible for your own behavior, but I think the hiring and the perspective and the ability to manage without micromanaging and creating a happy workplace that works is just down to you. And it's frankly an awesome thing to behold. And I just appreciate getting to be a part of it and getting to watch it, because you're a great role model for everyone in the building, myself included. Thank you.
Josh, anything?
Yeah, thank you, Kate. I really enjoy working with you, and you're incredibly patient with me, with my questions and requests, and you're very responsive. The only constructive thing, we've talked about this, like with the tennis courts, like reaching out to neighbors when there's a particular project. Like, I think the town can do more of that.
Agreed, I agree with that.
But like Heidi said, I think everything is positive.
Okay, I know how much you hate an evaluation session, so I will talk slowly. And no, I would, to quote Scott and Zach, when they were so effusively, they said, "We're very pleased." So that says volumes about how well the town is run, about the stuff, and the points that really matter, the financials. And that's all at your feet, so thank you. You did a great job. And so to echo what Heidi said, there's a Greek saying that a fish rots in the head first. And it also goes reverse. You have, I think, you see it to the very tail of a fish, that this town runs well. The staff enjoys working here. They feel like they can contribute. There's, I think, a sense of intellectual honesty, that they can act without being fearful, and they can be positive and make a difference. And I think that's all to your credit. Creating the culture of a corporation is a hard thing to do. And I think you did it really well. So thank you.
On the onboarding, I'm still laughing that we've onboarded since 2021, 6 members of a 5-member board. So that's big change, right? And I think you've really hit on, I think it is an excellent place to work. And just tonight, you can see how much we rely on. I had to ask Miles, I had to ask Karis, I had to ask Katie, I had to ask Dave, I had Cecilia, and Tom Ryder and Amy, so Tatiana. So having them all here is really helpful. So I don't have to say, I'll get back to you, because they're here. So it is a great team. I love working here, and I'm glad you feel like people feel like they're working here. And I would just close by reminding you that there are a lot of men and women out there still working for the town of Needham every day, every night, every weekend. So just remembering them. So thank you.
Sir.
Can we please move on?
And I would also note that we did this on a night where we also looked at our satisfaction survey.
Right, yeah.
And the citizens are similarly well pleased, so.
Okay, great.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move that the board.
Oh, wait.
vote-
Do we want to rush into that? Hold on. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I move that the board vote to approve the town manager consensus evaluation overview document dated August 6, 2024, and authorize the chair to approve a merit award of up to $2,500 to the town manager as provided for in section 5.5 of the employment agreement between the town and the town manager.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, dramatic pause. All right, let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, next up. Open meeting law complaint. This is a board discussion. Board discussion. On October 11th, 2023, Greg Darish filed an open meeting complaint with the Select Board and the Planning Board. These complaints asserted that the September 11th, 2023 joint executive session of the two boards was improperly held. The Planning Board discussed the complaints in an open session on October 17th. But what I want to get to is that on August 2nd, 2024, the Office of Attorney General issued a determination letter concluding that the Select Board and the Planning Board did not violate the open meeting law, and it now considers both complaints to be resolved. And you have the letter and Chris's memo. Any discussion?
I guess I would just note that, well, of course, I personally think that the Select Board and the Planning Board are always quite conservative in their use of executive session and quite proper. But I also note just that I think the town should be aware of how much the resources that go into complaints like this, which is not to say that they shouldn't be made, but they shouldn't be made lightly. And I guess I'm glad that we have the opportunity for discussion.
Right.
So I was not a member of the board during this meeting. At the time, I attended the open session part. I did not attend the executive session part. I was also confused whether the board meant executive session after having read the executive session and say, now understand. So I think for people who are not in the room, it's easy to not understand. It's easy to not know the reasons for why an executive session is being held. So, I mean, I understand the questions that were raised by this complaint.
Right. Thank you. That's an interesting perspective. I think there's a sort of tension in that in a democracy or representative government, this is sort of a good check. And I think it's important, it has a role. You know, I also consider that I think it was 12 hours of billable hours from town council. So there's cost to it too, but I appreciate the role that it plays. I am gratified that I think we did it all right, but I appreciate some confusion. But.
So I think it is worth going back though to where Heidi started. You know, this was a complaint that began at October 11th, 2023, right? So we're almost full cycle, or 10 months of lapsed time on this. You know, it took more discussion at an October 17th planning board meeting, October 24th select board meeting, and then responses that went back at the end of October. Then there was another set of things that required further review filed by Mr. Darish on December 9th. All of this finally filtering through. So there's been tracking by council, by the town manager, by others. There are other things that come in that require going through everybody's emails and looking through texts and through other things. And I guess what I would say is that the people who work for town government are working with the best interests of the town at heart, right? And I appreciate Josh's observation that upon reading that, in fact, it was clear why there was a discussion that was in executive session, right? But people, I think if all of us would start with more goodwill sort of to one another, we would have more time and attention that could be put in ways that the town is really asking us to deliver results than in items like this. It's just, it does take time, and time from the chair, you know, all of that, so.
Thank you. Good point. All right. Any other questions, comments, criticisms? Okay. Next up, committee reports. What do you got? Anyone?
It's summer. Can we start with it's summer? There shouldn't be too many committee reports.
I'd like to just talk about one. I just wanted to make sure that it was publicly known that the town has started talking about how to put this tree situation together. And I call it a situation because it's still in the works and we haven't quite decided how to take it forward, but we're working on it. Internally, the town and myself have met to talk about what the proper way to move forward is, given the history on this very subject. And I've gotten a lot of questions from the public about where this stands. And so I kind of wanted to say, like, it's coming. We're trying to figure out what's the best way to constitute a committee and so on, and what that committee would be charged with. And it's just really complicated, but I just wanted to reassure the public that it is happening, especially in light of the conversation that we had here today. So there's that. I just, on another subject, I just wanted to say that I attended the National Night Out on the Town Common with the Needham Police, and it was fabulous. And he was very sorry that you and Ezra missed it. There was, there were puppies, there was cornhole, there was ice cream out of a police truck. It was really very nice. And I also wanted to say that I participated in or I went along on the Needham Housing Coalition walks, which are not a town-sponsored event. They are, Needham Housing Coalition is, it's a housing group in town, a grassroots organization. But I just wanted to, because that subject, the MBTA communities, is coming up soon at town meeting, and those walks were recorded and they are available online. I think they're a really good resource if there are residents or town meeting members who had any questions about what some examples of density look like. That might be a worthwhile resource for them.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
So
Yes.
in that spirit, I could also say that on the board's behalf, I did attend Purple Heart Day last week, and Needham has 84 Purple Hearts. And we certainly, as a community, work to support all of our veterans, but particularly those who have been wounded or killed in the line of duty, and are grateful for their service. So the one other thing that I thought relative to a committee is our MBTA communities work goes on, and we did receive feedback from the state. I know that the planning board is planning to discuss that zoning again tomorrow night as it gets ready to move to a public hearing. I am going to observe what I observed when we did our large group meeting on MBTA communities, which is that one of those areas of zoning is not like the others. And there is, as I understand it, from having watched the last meeting, another new restrictive action that is being proposed following the zoning that was submitted with respect to the property at 100 West. And that continues to concern me, since I do hope that that property will be redeveloped and brought back to life and be a contributing part of our community in a way that the community hopes that happens. So I just will be interested to see what happens tomorrow night again.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything?
Do you want to talk about stormwater?
I'll do it if you don't.
You take it.
Okay. Well, a few things. One is, last time we were kind of all together was 4th of July parade.
I wasn't there.
I know, you were missed. They were so excited that we were there. They had fireworks the night before.
That I attended.
No, but we also had the stormwater working group. It's underway. I think we've had 4 meetings now. Not telling tales out of school, but one conclusion that came up very quick is that we're going to make a bylaw, which town meeting will pass, hopefully. But we'll also they will generate regulations, which the select board will pass. And right now, the town only has a bylaw, no regulations. So it's sort of, there's no data or meat on the bones. So that's what we'll be creating as well, is a bylaw and regulations. So just so you know.
Can you detail to some degree the difference between a bylaw and a regulation for those who are not familiar?
I'll let Josh take that.
Sure. I think it's really preference. Like, you could put everything in a bylaw. The reason why you might have stuff in regulations is so that they can be changed more easily, more nimbly, so that it's just a select board vote. That's the answer. You could put, you can weight it either way. You could put more in the bylaw, more in the regulations. It's just your preference.
Yeah.
Regulations are way more nimble. Bylaw takes town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and it might be technical stuff, more regulations, more technical applications of the bylaw. And then Seal and Branding has been meeting. Of course, we met them today. And then finally on the 22nd of July, delegation from Beijing, China was here. And that was great. It's, in all its diplomatic glory, is awkward and stilted, but it was very good to see them. And they had a great tour of Needham. They saw the library, the police and fire.
Rosemary.
And Rosemary.
And Rocket.
And Rocket. And I think the pool had been cleaned up. There's no salts on it. Took bags of chips to fix it. And that's all I got.
There's a blood drive at the Center at the Heights on Friday, August 23rd.
All right, okay. Thank you. Anything else?
In the spirit of having spoken about the MBTA tonight, the Quiet Zone Committee will be restarting right before our next meeting. Well, not next week's meeting, but before our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay. Okay, excellent. All right. Well, we can stay here all night.
Wow, look at that. Right on the nose, Kate.
Excellent, okay.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
I'd second.
If we must. Okay. All right, any discussion? We'll talk about Kate's review again? All right, let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.